And on a mission.
I don't need this for the meeting, so here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, I just, let me use Quincy real quick. My phone got wet today and it keeps yelling at me every time I want to charge it, so I just want to know if it's still wet. Yep. Unplug charger immediately.
At least you don't have to have it in a bag of rice for a week. A month, if however long.
Well, I don't know. It's been drying for a couple hours.
Mine took a swim in the Pacific Ocean in Costa Rica.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you bring it back from the bed?
Well, all I really cared about was getting my photos off it, and they didn't manage to do that. We kept
okay.
it at the rice for like 3 weeks, and they managed to take my photos off it. Just like the rest of it, I was like, fine, I'll get any photos. I don't want to leave it.
Afternoon, how we doing?
Not bad. Left my put planter out in the. I'll be right back.
Go. I'll time you, right? I'm in. Like you and I could be at Pat's. Put our nameplates over at Pat's and we'll have a pizza. Oh, not so much. Okay. So yeah, Dan, so when we get to the after 7, just go slower because I'll be doubling it up on the video. Videos work, but just give me a little bit of margin for error.
I love it. It's just refreshing. All the zero calories, zero alcohol, but it's still like a beer-like experience. So, particularly,
All right.
But nailed that. Holy smokes.
Car's right outside.
there.
Me? No, Cody's got it. Yeah, Cody's got it. Okay.
Okay, we'll get started in just a second.
Thank you. We're getting some rain.
But it's specifically facilities, or is it a bunch of stuff?
I don't know what it
Okay,
is.
I'll just roll.
It came from Zach.
Thanks.
I'm not entertaining it.
You just have to hand it out. Thank you. Hey, Andrea. How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. It looks like it's all facilities.
Can Matt Powers, can you hear us? Is Matt online, Cody?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hey, Matt, thanks. Okay, good afternoon and welcome to the Monday, May 19th, 2025 Town Council Budget Workshop and Meeting. Roll call shows we have Councilor Rob Larway, Councilor Andrea Hardison, Councilor Sarah Marks, Councilor Dan Demerit, Councilor Leo Kenny, Councilor Jacob Baker here with us, and Councilor Matt Powers is zooming in from right down the street. Okay, thank you. We're gonna start with, we have the budget workshop and expected to go until probably 6:15, 6:20. For those who plan to tune in for the town council meeting and the agenda items that we have. We have a busy evening tonight, so we'll move right along. I'll try and cut down on the dad jokes and the puns to keep us moving.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All those in favor, right? It's moved and seconded. And then but to update on the budget process, we wanted to have a little discussion about this. We've got, Clint, jump in here, right? But we've got the workshop tonight. And then the plan would be for council decisions, discussions on June 2nd. So no plan presentations. It's all going to be council discussions, decisions, direction setting based on what we've heard. And perhaps some feedback that will come from tonight's discussion that staff will be able to respond to. And then June 9th, we'll have the public hearing and the second round of council decisions. And June 23rd will be the presentation of council proposed budget. So the thinking, with a lot of leeway granted, the thinking would be just clarifying questions during the pause presentations this evening, then the probing questions after the presentation's been completed, then we move on to the next one. But where no one's going to move to, change this budget number or that budget number today. Is that everyone's okay with that approach? And those kinds of conversations will be stuff that we start on June 2nd. Okay.
So the only thing I'd add is that after the June 9th, that second round of questions, that night it would be the manager staff recommended budget. And then whatever you give me for items on June 2nd would be prepared as a memo or list. You would then add to it or subtract or change that list on the 9th. Then we would do what is called the council proposed budget that would be reprinted and made available in time for the June 23rd meeting. So the public hearings on the 9th. That's where all that last round of input from the public is on the manager proposed. Then you make it yours. Then on June 23rd, I think we discussed that any changes at that night would have to be done as a formal resolve. That way we would have an order on record for what was changed from the council proposed budget at that night. And we would do another final revision. The hopes would be is that the June 23rd represents the last version of the budget and it's approved that night, but it is there.
So it would be, so like if we make decisions or try and provide direction on the 2nd or the 9th, be sort of a straw poll of kind of sense of the council, which way we want to go. But if once the June 23rd budget has been printed and, presented to the public, if you want to come into that June 23rd meeting with some kind of change, you got to come in with like an order that we have to vote on formally because it would be a change to something that's been presented. Does that make sense to people? Mm-hmm. So you got 2 meetings where we can just show of hands, kind of give direction in June. And then the 23rd will be the formal adoption of the budget, ideally. And with or without amendment. Yep, with or without amendment. But amendments have to come in a more formal way at that point. Okay, so we're going to start with any other questions on the process? Okay, we're going to start with, and Matt, you're on screen, so just mindful of that. So we're going to start with number 3, department operating police, estimate 20 minutes.
Good evening.
Good.
This extra cord up here was throwing me, so I had to figure out what it was going to. I got it now, though. We're good. Yeah, so the police department. I'm going to take you through and just go through the highlights. When I was looking at my budget, I'm going to skip ahead to go back, but it's just because there's no changes. So if you look in the budget book on page 73, there's public safety administration. So that would be where our secretary lies, Jessica Mason. There's no changes significant to that budget. Just a $250 increase that we would do for the copier is all I got really in that line. So I figured I would draw you guys' attention to at least my portion of the public safety administration. I'm in support of what Clint's put in here, where we would separate that out in budgets going forward, where it's reflected as 2 employees right now. So it would be the fire department's admin assistant and our admin assistant also. As it's reflected right now in my budget, my admin assistant is in my operating budget. So just for clarity's sake, I just wanted to draw you guys' attention to that. So no significant changes in that. So with that, we'll move forward with my budget, which starts on page 68 in your budget book. Happy to report that we don't have any staff. Well, I don't have any staff changes or any requests for new officers at this point. We are still working very hard to fill a vacancy that we've had open since last summer. I can assure you it hasn't been for a lack of trying, and I've gone and seen Clint many times. It's just been for one reason or another. We've had 3 candidates not pan out and meet the bar that I would expect in the police department. So we've decided to move on from them, and we're continuing to look and hoping to be doing more interviews within the next week or so and continuing to be on the lookout. So, as Clint and I have talked about, and he's told me many times, it's our job to hire the right people. And if they're not going to be a good fit for us, I just assume, run a little short. So you'll see that in our budget. So again, as far as the operations look, still in the same thing. As far as staffing goes, the organizational chart's all the same. When we look at the key data points on page 69, that was just some data that I thought might be helpful. It's typically reflected in the annual report that we post every year. It's mostly that type of stuff with a few extra things. So typically, in the annual report, I won't always give all the traffic stops and crashes that we do. So you'll see property damage crashes in there, traffic tickets and OUIs, things like that. I added a few more markers in there, I guess, to better represent some of the things that we do that are at a real high level. So you'll see the service calls. When we say service calls, that's essentially all the calls for service that our officers would respond to in a fiscal year. So it typically averages, so that would be to this point, so it's about a month ago. So we're about on pace. We usually do about 5,000 to 5,300 calls for service in the course of a year. That's pretty average for us. So I'd say that we're well on our way to that. In the budget, when we're looking at the budget, my dues and subscription line is up noticeably. This is one of the things that I selfishly plugged a couple weeks ago, so I'll bring it up again. One of the things that it is Power DMS is a contract that we have that allows us to have our policies and procedures online. And we've had that service for, I want to say it's at least 7 or 8 years. And it's something that I've been paying out of my budget because it's a contract that we have. I couldn't tell you other than just pure oversight, at least on my part. I'll own my part. I went back in the budget since FY22, and I've never had it have its own line item in my budget, but I've been paying for it out of the contract every year. So it's been something I've been paying for every year out of my budget. It's just been getting missed, but it's been getting paid. So I put that $5,000 in there. Yeah. So the Power DMS contract is $5,400. So you'll see that reflected in there. And then the other $2,000, approximately $2,000, is to help us with our accreditation management. This year, we're going to work towards making it a year-end goal to become accredited through MLEAP, which is the main law enforcement accreditation program. So to be an accredited agency, once we get accreditation through the state, it actually is a benefit to us because we can see a reduction in our MMA insurances. I want to say, I was just at a conference, I want to say it's at least like 10% that they give us off our premiums if we're an accredited agency. So another thing that I think is very valuable, and it's something that, not many agencies yet in Maine, I can't remember what the number is off the top of my head that they told me, but it's pretty confident I could say it's less than 50 in the state are accredited right now through this program. So I think it's something that would be a real goal for us to attain this year. Not seeing anything major. Happy to report too, something that we've been working on for the last few years. If you look at page 70 at the top in our vehicles and maintenance line, I've continued to actually the last few fiscal years be able to pull down my gas line, and I can attribute that only to having more and more of the hybrid cars in the line. I know right now my budget's significantly underspent in that line, and it's because all of our cars on the front line are hybrids, and we're seeing significant gas savings in having those hybrid cars. So I know it's something that we've talked about in years past to try and get to this point where I have all of our frontline cars are hybrids, that when they're driving around town, we're using less gas. It's better for emissions and things like that. So, I continue to pull that line down a little bit just to save us some money. So it was $2,000 down in that line, and I moved up my tires line because things are getting a little more expensive. So I moved that one up 500. but it's still a net savings of about $1,500 overall. For professional services, this is going to be one of the shifts that the town manager's made for us, where you'll see the $30,000 is going to be stuff that used to be in my capital budget. So it's contracts that we already have assigned. So it will be our tasers, which are Axon tasers, which we use as one of the tools, our less lethal tools. And then the other one is our contract with Motorola services for our body worn cameras, and interview room systems. So those two things, like I said before, used to be in my capital budget. Clint thought that it would be worthwhile to reflect it in our operating budget because it's an operating cost. It's a contract I'm going to pay every year. So that's the $30,000 that you guys see there. So other than that, the big drivers that we had were the union contract obviously had a mandatory pay increase of 3.5%. So you guys will see that in there. I already talked about the power DMS contract. And that's the main stuff. Some of the stuff that I had in my budget for areas of discussion and budget increases and space needs, I think unbeknownst to me, when I was writing this, we might have hopefully solved to some degree because it was police department related. So I think when I was crafting this document 6 weeks ago or so, I was not knowing that we were going to be doing something across the road in the years to come for the police department. So some of the concerns that were reflected in the budget, they still exist, but we're moving forward and we have a plan in place, and we'll talk about that more later on in the meeting. I think the council meeting, actually the full council meeting, right? So other than that, I moved up a community policing line to $2,500. That would be something that would be in conjunction with Orono stops, and I wanted to put some money in there in case the council felt we should talk come fall with hockey traffic details too. I wanted to earmark some money in that in case we wanted to do some funding of our own and continue those conversations with the university as the fall gets closer. So I earmarked some money in there just in case we needed to do something there. Any questions on anything I've talked about so far? That's the high level overview of what I got.
Okay. Any questions on this side of the dais? Councilor Kenny?
Where is the accreditation dollars? What line is that in?
So if you look, so it's in, get my pages mixed. Yes, I'm just trying to find that page. Yes.
It's page 69.
Where'd I put it?
It's in there. So 74. Okay. And is that 74.50 increase is this just paying, is it for extra overtime for people to do that work for the accreditation, or how does that? play
Nope.
into
So
it?
that increase is all for the contract. So the Power DMS subscription alone for our users is $5,400. So of that $7,000, $5,400 of that is our Power DMS subscription, which I undersell Power DMS when I say that it's just our policies and procedures online. It's also where we track all of our staff training. It's a workflow to where we can track staff to make sure that they're reviewing policies and procedures. It's crucial, actually required, if I'm not mistaken, to be an MLEAP accredited agency because it allows the accreditation managers, the people that are the outside parties that review our policies and procedures, they actually will access our Power DMS software to review our policies and procedures remotely and make sure that they're compliant. So it kind of goes hand in hand. It originally came from the former police chief. We went Power DMS when we were CALIA. So CALIA was like the gold standard that was a national certification that we had back in 2016, I want to say 16, 17. So that was when we started to go with Power DMS for this online policy and procedures platform. And we've had it ever since.
So that was the other confusion because I thought we were accredited.
Yes. So So we were accredited through CALIA, that lapsed. Then we were able to get into the MLEAP program in like during the COVID times because we used to be a CALIA accredited. So CALIA is, like I said, the gold standard nationally. So they knew that our policies and procedures would be compliant with their standards when it first came out. So MLEAP's come a long ways in the last 5 years. And during that time, in about 20, I believe it was the end of 21, we were coming due for a reassessment. And that was when the chief at the time left and our accreditation lapsed for a few years. So we actually haven't been accredited for the last few years. I've been working back towards it. It's been on my to-do list. I have not been able to get there because of the lift.
And if you want to look at, there's more detail on page 224 of the appendix on all three of those components that come together in that one line, 620.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, this side's all set. Matt, you have anything?
I just wanted to ask, so does the accreditation, this is something that will probably pay for itself with the lowering of insurance or come close to it? I think it's good to be accredited anyways, but I'm just curious if you have a projection. Maybe that's a Clint question.
I couldn't tell you off the top of the head what the savings is. I don't know. I do know that I even just talked to Clint this morning. I was at a conference last week. There is an opportunity for me, I think, to try and seek some grant funding to help us offset some of the costs that could come with accreditation through Maine Municipal, because Maine Municipal does want agencies to go into this program. It's going to be a big lift, but they're very interested in getting more people into it. So I'm seeking that option too, as well.
Thank
I'll
you.
put that down as a question. We'll see if we can get an answer.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Council Marks?
Yes, actually, just to follow up on that, just so I'm sure I'm understanding. So it's the CALIA certification that we're working back towards, or it's a different certification now?
It's the state one. So the state of Maine has created its own program because we went gold standard when we were CALIA, but I know it was more than a full-time person's job. And the former police chief was really, really good at managing it. Him and another patrol officer that we had at the time basically were doing it all. And it was creating a massive time draw on them. So the state of Maine came up with its own standards of accreditation that's accepted by MMA, is my understanding. And it's much more attainable for small agencies. And especially where there's a company that we can use. So Diego Safety is the company that we use to help us with our policies and procedures. It's also who we do our online training for. So if we contract with Diego Safety, which we will to build this accreditation, they work together, because if we have Diego Safety policies, which we do, those are automatically MLEAP compliant. So you just got to put all the pieces to the puzzle together to make it more user-friendly for us. I'm not saying it's not going to take any of my time or any of the administrative assistant's time, but it is significantly less than it was with CALIA.
Thanks. And my next question was just a follow-up. I wanted to be sure on page 71, when you mentioned the addition to the community policing line for potential hockey game coverage, and maybe it sounds like Orono stops coverage, that amount you just said was, it's 2,500 added to that line? Is that right?
Yes, I'm trying to look at my,
It's not on page 71, but I think you just said it out loud. So I just was curious.
It
if I
was
heard
in
it
my-
correctly.
yes, it's
That's what I
in
heard.
my,
Okay.
it's in my line budget. So it was $5,000 last year and I moved it to $7,500.
Okay. And my last question is just about, I know you mentioned that, wages in the union contract were up 3.5%, but when I look at the overall graphs on page 69 and 70, it looks like wages are up somewhere between 5.6 and 6.4. Is that additional overtime being added or time being added, or what's driving that more than the 3.5? I do see benefits are up also too, quite like 13% range, or 11 on community policing. So this may be more of a Clint question. I'm not sure, but could someone just explain to me the difference there in what I see in the wage raise as opposed to the union contract?
The other piece that you're not seeing is that some people have their different seniority levels that they're going to achieve. But the
Yes.
3.5 is the negotiated COLA. And then as far as the benefits, you will notice that number changes from department to department. And that's because different employees opt for different benefit levels, so that can fluctuate up and down a little bit in between. I think we were 9%. I'm looking at Zach on health insurance was across the board. But again, people can elect for different plans that have different cost impacts.
Thank you.
Okay, Andrea or Rob, anything?
I don't know if this isn't, I mean, this all looks great. But maybe this opens up a can of worms, or what is the difference materially for you all in this change in accreditation? Like what are some of the specifics that affect this change?
So fortunately for us, where we've been using, we've had Deergo Safety creating our policies. Our policies and procedures are already based on best practices in law enforcement. So essentially what accreditation does is it just comes in and a group of assessors come in and oversee and make sure that we're being authentic to our policies and procedures that we say we are. So it's kind of a check and a balance to the police department, where other chiefs and other people that work on the accreditation team come in and we're required to provide proof. So a proof is like a standard. So if I say that, you know, our police officers wear their seatbelts, I have to have a policy on wearing seatbelts, right? Or if we have to train on CPR every 2 years, I have to show that we've trained on CPR every 2 years. And we have to provide those proofs, as it were, to these accreditation people to show them that we're actually doing what we say we're doing. So it's more work, but it's more, it just shows that we're doing what we say we're doing. And I think it adds to the transparency lens too, to say that we can back up what we say we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate the value of accreditation. I guess I was more wondering if there were any specific changes that you foresee as a result of changing the type of accreditation that you're going through.
Procedurally?
Yeah.
More procedurally? I can't think of anything off the top of our head, because like I said, fortunately for us, we've gone from Kalia to MLEAP, and even though we had that gap where we weren't accredited, we still had basically the same policies and procedures in place. So I can't say that staff's had a big world shift operationally in what we've changed. It's just a matter of staying on top of the policies and procedures, because we've been using Deergo Safety for our policies for the last few years. So it's a benefit to not fall behind, right? We don't have to worry about constantly catching up with what the new current trends are. So procedure, like, honestly, I couldn't give you a good representation off the top of my head.
Okay. And these FY25 numbers, they're through like year to date, like a month ago or so, or something like that.
Probably April-ish.
Yeah.
I want to say. Yeah.
And we could track them year to year in your annual reports. Is that a place where you'd see like how things like traffic stops or service calls change from year to year?
Yes. So there is actually yes, in the annual report, I usually give some stuff,
Okay.
and I have something in the queue for hopefully this year that will be beneficial.
Okay.
I'm working on creating my own department year-end report, maybe.
Okay.
It's a calendar year. That would be like a review of what the police department's done for this calendar year of 25. And
Excellent.
that's something that I've seen accredited agencies have done, where they're like, this is what our agency has done. It'd be a way for us to promote some additional training that we've done, right? So you guys could see we've done 1,500 hours in extra training, and it was because we did this. Staff's been doing defensive tactics every Thursday for 4 hours, and we did our annual firearms training, and we did this and we did that, and all along we were involved in Special Olympics and participated in bike rodeos and these community events and potlucks and all this stuff, and kind of a way to show.
Excellent.
Calendar year though, it's
Okay.
just a little easier. I think I got to do calendar year.
Sure.
It'll be easier for me to pull some data calendar year, but
Sure. That makes sense. Councilor Kenny has one more?
Yeah, just one more on that. I forgot I had that on the graph. Service calls. That doesn't mean that is like literally inbound calls, correct?
Yep. Some of it's self-generated stuff. So some of it would be
Oh.
the property checks that we do at nighttime.
Okay.
The special details that we would do for Orono stops. Those are all, those are all self-generated stuff. So some of it would be the property checks that we do at nighttime. The special details that we would do for Orono stops. Those are all, those are all self-generated stuff. So some of it would be the property checks that we do for Orono stops. Those are all things that would generate a call for service for us, a report that the officers have to do, essentially is what a call for service would
But
be
it,
for
it
us.
doesn't mean that all those service calls doesn't mean we had to roll a car somewhere to go handle something, correct?
Correct. So it would be when I run our calls for service in our system, it's the self-generated stuff and the stuff that comes from dispatch. So the self-generated stuff, like I said, would be proactive details. If somebody's doing a distracted driving detail this afternoon, they would pull a call for service card while they're doing their detail for 4 hours.
See.
But if you're working the road today and you get a call for an alarm at the bank across the street or a theft at the country club or any of that stuff, those are also different versions of calls for service. So, the traffic crashes that are on here, the noise complaints, the disorderlies, the mental health calls and the welfare checks, those are all kind of like subcategories of what a call for service would be.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so those fall under there too.
Yes.
Those are
Yep.
just broken out because they're
Yes.
enough
Yes.
to be broken out.
Yep.
And one last,
Sure.
you should maybe plug the Special Olympics while you're up there.
Special Olympics. Yeah. So the Special Olympics that's my thing. In case you've never seen it on the Facebook page, that's my thing that I'm passionate about. So that will be the first weekend in June. So it's 6, 7 or 7, 8. Sound right? Somebody? Something like that. I know if you want to cheer us on, myself, the captain, and a few other officers will be running down here on Main Street like we do every year. That Friday, it's usually about 3:30. Running the torch from the VZ Town line up to the steam plant lot where we'll meet up with everybody else that's going to run the final leg. So they run the final leg from the steam plant lot up to the mall on campus through a whole bunch of Special Olympics athletes usually cheering us on. And then they'll have a parade that night on Friday, lighting of the cauldron. And then all day Saturday and for the morning on Sunday of that weekend, they'll have the games up on campus, up on the football field. So it's a great event.
Awesome.
Never missed them.
Thanks.
Excellent. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Your department's showing a lot of leadership in Orono and really appreciate it.
We're trying.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Next up, we have Fire EMS Hazmat with Safer Grant discussion, which we had a big chunk of last week. Chief Higgins.
Good evening, everybody. Tom Higgins, Fire Chief. I feel like I just left here from last week. But appreciate you having me here tonight to talk about the budget. I certainly don't want to miss an opportunity to maybe educate you a little bit since I'm here. So on page 75, it should be in yours. It shows our organizational chart that we do have a chief, deputy chief. We have an inspector, 4 captains, 4 lieutenants, and our 16 firefighters, as well as an EMS support specialist. So just want to refresh everybody on that. Some key points for us that kind of even surprised me when I saw them is that our busiest hours are from 5 to 6 p.m. It's seems a funny time of day, other than the traffic. Busiest day is Wednesdays. And our busiest months last year were August and December, and we are tracking all this again, so we'll have updates for next year. So as far as the budget, not a lot of changes from the fire department, even though I'm new here. It's pretty consistent with what it has been in previous years. Places that we made adjustments or because that we saw that we're over budget or that realized that there was a place that might be a little bit short and need a little extra money to buy like turnout gear and things like that. Some of our new lines and for significant changes would be what we talked about last week, talking about the SAFER grant and getting that rolled into the fire department payroll so that we can keep our staffing. Some fiscal year goals to transition, again, the SAFER grant and talk about a command or vehicle for the fire inspector. And then for us to continue looking for grant opportunities. We do that, always looking for a good grant opportunity. We do have quite a few different mandates that we follow and different things we do as far as like our staffing at a minimum of 5 is based on the collective bargaining agreement. And then something that we probably don't talk enough about is about our support for UMaine, with EMS, with fire inspections, code, planning, and other safety initiatives. Our inspector spends a significant amount of his time just at the university on those different projects that are up there. The big projects call for a lot of time, but it also just inundated with questions, I think, that are good questions, that they want to do things right, but they need some guidance on those. So it's always good having him up there. There's a number of different things in the list here, from whether it be talking about our paramedics or what we follow with our Bureau of Labor Standards and things like that. I know our workers' comp has been up, and I actually have a meeting tomorrow to talk to MMA to see what they have for ideas and to go along with some changes that we've made. So hopefully we'll get some good news there, and that we're going to have a much better year as we progress. Talk about on page 77, talking about calls for service. It's they have increased, but not significantly, but they are on track to be much higher than what they were last year, which seemed to be a low number. Of course, our fire apparatus is expensive. There isn't anything you can buy for $1 million or any less than $1 million today. It's just unbelievable how much they've skyrocketed. And the period of time that it takes to get the equipment, used to think it was a long time when you're talking about 10 or 12 months. Now you're talking about 2 to 3 years before you can get a piece of equipment. And our ladder truck is going to be scheduled to be replaced. We know that the public safety building's been a topic of discussion that needs some work done to it. So we'll be working on a plan and reassessing things as we get down the road. And staffing, I don't know if I'll cover much on the staffing part, as far as we've talked extensively about the SAFER grant and ways to, and things that we need to do as far as getting to full staffing. We are only short 2 people right now, and we've held interviews, and our next scheduled thing to do is them to meet the manager so that we could move forward. So we'll be getting that scheduled. So I think for explanations, that's pretty much it. Wanted to note that, again, that like our increases, 3.5% increase during the collective bargaining agreement for pay increase this year has an impact on the budget. Our workers' comp was high last year. And then we made some adjustments to accounts such as like vehicle repairs, because we had some problems, but we didn't go anywhere near. We had a couple one significant issue that was like a $20,000 repair. So we didn't adjust the budget to reflect that. Hopefully that was a one-time thing. We won't have that happen again. Our uniforms, we've increased uniform costs because one of the things that was sure to me that when I came here is our uniforms were anything but uniform. And we're getting everybody at where they need to be. And as part of the uniforms, it kind of comes along with our current structural firefighting clothing. And somehow we're behind in replacement of the gear that we have. It's only supposed to be in service for 10 years or as long as it stays in good shape, you can stay in it. Well, I had to sign a waiver the other day to have a set of gear repaired because it was over the 10 years, and they won't do it without someone else accepting the liability. I don't know if I want to call it liability, but acknowledgement that it's older, I guess, is what I'd call it. So other than that, just adjustments for general to keep things going. So I can go on for an hour or.
No, we can,
questions, or-
you did, that was.
I know Dan was long.
You gave us an hour last week almost, but we had a lot of questions for you. So I thought that was a fabulous, I think that really queued you and the department up for success in terms of how that conversation went. So start over here with Jacob, and we'll keep working right to left.
So going back to the inspections and the work you're doing with the university, because there's a lot of work going in up there with the athletics facilities and new engineering buildings and everything. Do you or do we charge for inspections or yeah, I guess do we recoup any of those funds? Because these projects, I'm assuming, do have permitting costs and everything else built into the budget. So, but does our fire department bill for any of that?
We do not. No, we don't. We do take advantage of the state when we can and when we need them. We'll bring state inspectors in to help out with it, but we do not charge for individual inspections.
Is that something that other fire departments do? Is there precedent for something like that?
I only have experience with one other one, had multiple inspectors, but did not charge for
Okay.
inspections.
Okay.
No. I don't know of anybody that does, that I can think of. And they certainly, they have a ton of stuff. They have like, they'll be doing like 200 small scale projects up there on the campus between now and the time the students return. It's just, yeah. That require fire. A lot of them, a lot of do require inspections, yeah, because of what they're putting on the floor, what the rating is on the floor and different things like that. So some of them are one and done inspections. Others are going to be like the Alfonda for the new basketball arena. They'll be there a lot.
Yep.
Just to go on top of that. So can we draw, it's a land grant institute, obviously. Can state sort of take over for that, for those things, or state fire inspectors?
For those inspections of state fires,
Yeah,
Mm.
or
they'll,
a state
they
facility.
consider it to be our jurisdiction and they'll come in and help us as we need help,
Mm.
but not as a rule. They might take on one project for us if they need us to, but you know, I don't know, there's not a big number of them that's spread across the state. We certainly know most of them on first name basis and can call them and use them. And our inspector's not afraid to do that.
Gotcha. My turn?
Yeah.
That was just a follow-up on his. I had a question on the ladder truck. How long, that's not really a topic on here, but I had asked earlier to find out how long, because I lost track and you weren't here, I guess, for a lot of it. How, do you recall how long that was out of service?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half?
The deputy can confirm it's a year and a half.
And during that time, we coordinated with BZ and Old Town, is that? what we
Yes.
did? Okay. And is it back up and running now?
Yes.
And it's going to be on a list for replacement. I know maybe it's in the capital to start saving and whatnot. And I guess I wanted to put out there that presumably we always talk about cooperation and consolidation and things like that. And I guess we just did show that a year and a half worth, we were able to, I don't have, no, I won't ask off the cuff, but I don't know how many times we run that ladder truck or need that ladder truck in a response. But it seems though we got through a year and a half, it really would be interesting conversations with our neighbors to see how we maybe skin that cat, other possible options.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. And we've talked about having discussions with them in the past. And we probably will with our partners, like Old Town doesn't run as big a ladder as we do because most of their exposures are not like the dormitories like we have. And then VZ's truck is on the older scale of it. They don't have anywhere near the staffing we have, but I think those things are worthy for discussions. I really do. And see where you can get everybody in our area and around here or in this region, not just in the state or this region of the state. Everybody likes the regionalization until they have to give something up or they have to spend some money. So those two are the big hangups.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Get it.
and yet nobody
so
wants
in this case, somebody would be potentially giving up owning a ladder truck or something like that. If, we've got 3, we got by with 2 for a year and a half. If we could come together with some sort of agreement that, and again, I don't know what VZ does for runs with a ladder truck. I would assume it's relatively, relatively low numbers, I would assume, but I've never
Yeah.
seen that data.
I don't think they overall have big numbers of response
Mhm.
just because of the size and the makeup of the community. But I don't know the numbers they
Yeah.
have. Certainly, they're easy enough to get a hold of, but
What is Fire Ground Command? Purchase SUV for Fire Ground Command? What is that?
so it's one of the things I was disappointed in, like getting it, don't have much to work out of. We don't have anything set up to run operations out of for fire. And so to set something up that you could actually stand underneath the lift gate and have an opportunity to have it set up with some radios, some books, different things like that, that are more, I don't know, it's University of Maine has one like it. It's a common, typical setup that most places have for events. And I really want to have something so that the inspector is you can identify him at the university and have it and let it up so you could tell who it is important too. So when he's up there doing his job.
So it's a vehicle that we don't have one.
We don't have one now. No,
And-
we do not.
And I guess I'm sounding it out here. And so that it would be a truck or SUV that shows up that is part of something that would help work a active scene,
Yes.
basically. Okay. Thank you. And with regards to the area service demand chart, it looked like in 2022 is where it sort of jumped up 300 or 400 and sort of stays up around there. I think. I'm curious if you would know, like, did we start covering something new that in that time frame, or, you know, it's a fairly distinct jump and it stayed up there since. I'm just curious if you have any idea what drove that growth.
Could it be coming out of COVID a little bit
I-
too?
If I was
Yeah.
going to say anything, it would be COVID. And I know that a lot of places had calls for service jump, and then they never seem to go back. And so the
Yeah,
call stayed
starts
up.
at 2020. I want to just, that's interesting. And I wonder if before that, if it was up higher before too or something. And it just, so 2020 and 2021 were down but that's, I don't see before that. So maybe it was, standard was up around 2000. But
Yeah. So we'll be over the 2,000, I think, this year. as
yeah,
well.
which
No
looks like
problem.
what it's been for the obviously 2,100 23, 19. And so that, but it's sort of leveled off up here and it was, but we're only seeing 2 years. So maybe it was up, COVID and back up. Be interesting to know that. No, I'm not asking for more information, but I was just curious if I thought maybe we started responding to something new or something like that, that would describe what happened, but not off
I'm
the
not
top.
aware of anything new. There's a deputy who has always a good reference to go back to.
Okay,
Thank you.
Councilor Marks?
I don't have a lot of questions. I have a thank you for all of the safer information last week. That really answered pretty much all of the questions that I had. I think the only thing I have is maybe not so much of a question, but I realized more as a follow-up to our safer discussion last week that I think it was Councilor Demerit who mentioned maybe not wanting to see safer data at the end of the 25 calendar year. And I guess I just wanted to say that I appreciated the offer to bring us the data when the calendar year closed and you really have it solid, because I know you're trying to estimate where the overtime will fall, and there was a range in there that led to the range of 120 to 180 in cost for that program over a whole year. And I do think it'd be helpful for us to hopefully see that 2025 calendar data, ideally in January or February, and not so close to the budget as this year. So I guess to you and Clint, I'd like to request that we see that in the winter time, if possible, at the end of the calendar year of 25. Thanks.
Did I say I didn't want to see data or?
You did. You said you wanted us to just say we're good forever going forward. I'm off mic, sorry.
Yeah,
Some comment, I like that. So
all right, we'll go.
anyhow, maybe I misremembered, but
Yeah.
I would like to see the data is all I'm saying. Thanks.
No, I guess I would. Yeah, I thought my sentiment was, and this is me trying to recollect, was, are we making a commitment to the safer, the fund the positions moving forward? I mean, I think that's a policy question, right? Are we move, are we making the decision kind of signaling that, let's go hire these positions, keep them, with the expectation that it would be in perpetuity, understanding that, there'll be different counselors sitting here next year when this question's coming up, and the decision we make today can't bind the budgetary decisions they'll make a year from now. I think that, but good. Okay. Sorry.
Sorry if that was a misrepresentation of that, Dan, but my big point was I would like to see that end of 25-year data. I'm assuming there's a spreadsheet built now that's pretty easy to plug the new numbers into, and that's not a huge ask to you guys. If it is a huge ask, please speak up.
Yep, no, it's not a problem. Deputy's working on numbers all the time and has a lot together, and we'll just keep building on them.
Okay. Councilor Hardison?
I have a few.
Yeah, it's all right.
Just to follow what they have said, if in the event you do drop staffing levels, are there services that we would end up losing with the reduction in staff?
So if we get to that, which I hope we don't, I don't think any of us do, there's no hope of dropping. Our biggest challenge will be the ambulances, having the second ambulance go out the door and only leaving one person behind to act as a fire department. And it's not conducive to being able to have a good service for the community and everything. So I'm not going to say any answers right now, but that'll be one of the top things I'll have to be, I'll have to consider. So absolutely.
The workers' comp line was high, and we talked before about the workers' comp rates increasing. Are there procedures being put into place to reduce the workers' comp incidents?
Only procedures is, we've made some internal changes as far as, some of it, I think, is housekeeping, some is, understanding, some is just, having a different thought process, or someone come from the outside to seeing things a little bit different. But most of the workers' comp, I think, is based around, some, previous things that had happened and now have been closed out. So hopefully it's going to make a change in.
More of a town-wide approach. I mean, our mod factor does affect the different positions, but it is a town-wide issue. We've restarted the safety committee. That's something that's kind of waned through coming out of COVID and with staff transition. So we're trying to get that up and running again. They will start to look at broader issues. And then internally, we always look at what we can do to reduce through education to improve people's situations so that comp claims drop. So hopefully the mod factor starts coming down. It used to be low years ago. It's just crept up on us recently. So we'll see.
I'm interested for what our meeting will be with MMA tomorrow, what they're looking at and now what we can make for adjustments.
And you had said something at the start about having to sign a liability waiver because of the age of gear. In what I've looked at, the recommendation is replacing the turnout gear after 10 years. What is the average age of the turnout gear for the fire department?
Oh, boy, it's all over the place. It is. And some of it's in the older stuff because we provide 2 sets of gear now for everybody so that they can get their gear washed immediately and not still covered with the carcinogens from being in a fire. And so we have some that's old. We have some that's new that we bought in the last year. We'll buy some more this year, and then we bump that line up some to assist us with it. So, but I mean, some of it is over the 10 years, but the 10 years, some people, it's like we all know, some people can take the same pair of pants and wear them for 5 years. The next guy can't get a week out of them because they rip a hole in them. And that's what some of these guys are hard on gear. They are. And so the age sometimes isn't indicative, even though we have fallen behind. I guess that's the term I want to use, is falling behind on having it where we should be, but we'll get there with your support and with the budget. So
Great. And this might be a Clint question, or maybe council can help, but I noticed lack of reserve funds. Do we know why we don't have reserves for the fire department?
I think it's larger, it's more with the fire truck purchases. We have reserves for EMS equipment. You have some reserves from others, but I think a conscious decision's been made or unconscious decision since the cost of fire trucks, the three big are $1 million plus each. You bond them now. You just don't save up any money to offset the cost. Should you do some? It's philosophy of a council, like, the pros and cons. If you save up, you're taxing the people today for a purchase they don't get to see till later. If you bond it, you have interest charges, but the people that get the advantage of using it are the ones that are paying for it. It's just kind of what you think's best for your community.
We did just wipe out the ambulance reserve as well, correct?
Yeah, there's a
300.
recommend, and if the capital plan goes through with the budget presented, there'll be 105 put back in to begin saving for the next.
Yeah, that was only, I think, a year or two ago. I forget now, but.
I don't remember on the ambulance. I remember on the ladder truck that previous administration had suggested that go into the list of projects to be bonded. But I don't remember on the ambulance.
Anything else, Andrew? Councilor Larway?
Yeah, less budget specific necessarily, but I was curious about your perspective on the reasons for some of the times, the hours, the days, the months that we have peaks in service provision. I'm curious if there's any thoughts about what causes, say, Wednesday to be busier than a Tuesday or a Thursday. I don't know if there's any. I mean, I could see more maybe talking about the months. August, there were more students coming back. I don't know if there's any thoughts about the causation there.
I don't. I
Yeah.
know of a department that used to talk about that Sunday afternoons seem to be their busiest time of the week.
Yeah.
And I don't have any data on anything like this. I just collected this on the number of calls that come in and I don't know whether that's
Yeah, I
gonna
imagine it's hard to
change for next.
parse out the causality, I'm sure, for anybody, but I was just
Yeah.
curious if there's any thinking about that.
No, and I think things like that, when I saw that, I thought that's intriguing that is the case of what that is. So it's like busiest day of the week. Yep, even for this year in 2025, it looks like the busiest busiest days of the week would be Wednesday and Thursday and between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. It looks like at night what might be the busiest times if it keeps trending the way that it is for this coming year. So I don't know. Data's kind of funny, make you laugh sometimes about where does this come from or how does this happen? Why would this be the busy time? So.
Councilor Powers, do you have anything?
No, thank you though. That was very good. And I'm looking forward to having a smooth running, healthy fire department as we move forward, which you guys have been working hard to have and have had in the past and are going forward with it. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. I have a couple rapid fire questions. You can, one word answers, please. No. The work we do with the university, what proportion, do you have any sense of what proportion you think it is in terms of, all things in the university district versus all things everywhere else, Orono and our community partners?
Oh, I don't know that. That's something probably we could start pulling together, something that way.
I don't need it. I'm wondering, and maybe
No, but
at some
I think
point,
that- I
when
think
we
that'd be
talk
good.
about kind of financial relationships with the university, it could be helpful to kind of have a sense of, and do you know what the highest, what is it, 5 stories? What's that tallest building they have over?
I think it's 5 is the
5.
highest one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, I like the idea of the partnership with, I talk about the university in terms of the opportunities and the obligations, and I think about, our commitment to keeping everyone in Orono safe. And I like it seems to me that the inspections and the work, the 200 projects going on this summer, when we're there helping them make sure those projects are safe and up to code and everything, we're in a better position, I think, as a agency to respond as well. So is that your sense as well?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. He brings back and shares information with the crews.
Yeah.
Almost daily.
Yeah.
So.
So you know what's going on, you know where you need to go, you know what you need to do. And then finally, to echo Leo's point, I don't have anything front of mind, but in the back of your mind, the back of our mind, thinking about how we improve collaboration among the communities. I like seeing the VZ ladder truck here. You know, I know it's here a lot, and, you know, those kinds of conversations, I know it's part of why we have the leadership team that we have in Orono, is to have those kinds of, not be afraid to have those kinds of conversations. So see where they go and let us know.
Absolutely. Great.
Thanks for all you do.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I do like the uniforms, as you know. I think I like the pullover is particularly snazzy.
Thank you. We're trying, so.
Yeah. Great.
And I don't have a tie on because I refuse to wear my tie now because it should be warm enough, so I should be in short sleeves and I'm still in a long
Oh.
sleeve shirt, so.
Fine by us, I think. Yeah, haven't seen many ties here in our meetings, so I think it's,
Thank
All
you,
right.
everybody.
thank you very much. It's nice to have you on board. All right, next up we have Public Works. Mr. Cody. Let's save all our hardest questions for Chris. Next up. We're coming.
Public Works Week. Is it?
No doubt there.
How'd I miss that?
We're gonna do a movie night for you folks.
Does it always follow Police Week?
Hey, Cody. Where's it start? Cody, where's it start?
He's gonna share
start it
that
up?
first. You know, so.
Good evening, folks. I'm
Good
Bill
evening.
Cody, Public Works Director. We're gonna do a PowerPoint for you folks tonight. We're gonna try to whip through it pretty quickly. Where's it starting, Cody? I'm used to, yeah, I'm used to PowerPoint. Not this Google crap. Excuse me. I was supposed to say
Won't
that.
be for long. We'll be in Microsoft. Yeah, we'll be Microsoft before you know it.
Where's it on? Oh, yeah.
All right, good evening, folks. We're gonna we're gonna try to get through this for you all tonight. This is gonna be the fiscal 26 budget workshop for Public Works. Megan's gonna do a bit. I'm gonna do Public Works and Facilities, and Megan's gonna cover environmental, because we get quite a bit environmental we kind of want to do this year. I want to start off by thanking my team, because we actually worked on this collaboratively to make sure that we've got everything that we think we need. So we also tried to be pretty astute with what we're spending our money on. So organizational chart, we have 13 FTEs in Public Works. This is the first time since I've been here. We actually have a full crew now. This is more of a look as if you looked at a winter project. We have a different one that we set up for summer, the way we split the crews now. So, but that's just kind of gives you an idea of what we look like. Key data points, you can see in front of you, you got the roads, we got land, sidewalks, cemetery, and acreages. We also how many miles of pipe we have, catch basins, outfalls, ditches, and culverts, and we handle all of this. So when we rebuild a road, our crew is the one going in, changing the culverts out, changing the sewer pipes out, or the sewer covers, and as well as doing the a lot of the crosswalks and walkways. So the general maintenance, Clint really was instrumental in putting this in place, kind of like what Dan did. So we're putting in 2 new line items. One is for small equipment, up to 5,000, and a second one is for equipment from 5 to 20. A lot of times in Public Works, we have smaller equipment. Sometimes we never know how long it's going to last. Sometimes it lasts us 20 years. We get up one day and all of a sudden it's not working anymore. So that'd be like attachments for our tractors or other things. So that's kind of what these lines are going to be for. One of the things we looked at this year was actually getting an enclosed trailer for all of our mowing machines and everything to get them out of the elements and have be a second storage for us. I mean, we're everywhere in Orono, we struggle for storage. So that just helps us out, be able to put it off the side. It also helps us break our crews into 2 crews to be able to get more done in that arena. So I know Leo's talked a lot about, you know, how we mow, what we do. So by breaking those teams up, we're trying to get more done. Professional service line in the 960, we're up at 28,400. Actually, we also pulled a $6,500 line out of this. Under the UCU, we used to have a contractor do all the mulching and shoveling. We pulled that out. We're going to be taking that on. But the 2 things on this is the iWorks. And iWorks is more of, we're not sure as a town where we're going to quite go yet, but iWorks helps us handle our roads, our equipment, work orders, And the increase is actually going to give us an ability to work with facilities and put a civic engagement on our website. So a person can come in, instead of just sending us an email, they can actually go on the website, pick a department, hey, this is the issue I've got, and we can direct that right to whatever department it needs to go to. So we are looking at other softwares, but this is what we have in place right now. And this is what we kind of bid out at that time. This is something that's been in place since Rob Yerkes has got here. When I got on board, it really wasn't going anywhere. So with help from Megan Haas, we were able to get it back up and running and do some research on it and get us going. So the bit in the cemetery is a good sized one. We're going to show you a couple pictures here. So we have a building repair. We're trying to rebuild the building. I don't know if anybody's been up seeing the building lately, but it's in pretty rough shape, even from the road. New siding for the office, repairing for the retaining wall that sets up there. Also under professional services, $3,700 for stone repair, like you can see here, and annual grub treatment. Now, the nice thing with the annual grub treatment, I was able to find another vendor that actually cut about, I think it was about $1,500 off our annual grub, because I think Chris has a grub control he needs done. We have it done at the cemetery in one other place, and we're able to just suck it all up and not even have to charge Chris. So we try to save money. We even save money on Chris's budget. So this is what we're talking about as far as what's damaged up there. This is what we really need to get in and try to fix. And this is kind of it's in pretty rough shape. Basically, what we're going to do is just go right over the top of it. Our guys will do the work right over the top of it with tin or paneling. So get away from the wood. We'll go right over. Don't have to strip it. The building itself is in really good shape. The bones of it is in really good shape. So one of the big things we want to go to is a cell phone is a cell phone expense line, $3,100 and $60 for the year. This puts a device on our equipment that we can track our equipment. We can see how they're plowing, if they're plowing too fast, too slow. A lot of times we'll get complaints that, oh, your truck was traveling down here at X amount of miles an hour. I can go on, check that on here, go back, log it, look at it. Bangor has this and loves it. And I know, Dan, you guys got a different one set up. You didn't do that, but it also gives us some connection on the vehicles. If there's anything going wrong electronically, it gives us some immediate feedback, so we can take a look at that as well. So repair and maintenance, we've increased by 8,000. We have a small scissor lift we'd like to pick up for our smaller vehicles, like our mowing machines, to help the guys be able to work on them. This year we get hit pretty hard on our street sweeper brooms and plow cutting edges. We call them wearables. You wouldn't think we had a lot of snow, but they were long storms and they were going all the time. A lot of problems with that. So, and also new rollers for one of our paving machines to be able to just need new rollers on that, try to repair it, keep that going. So we did increase that by 8,000. Buildings and ground and maintenance. This one went up by 16.8. We don't know what happened here. LP gas took a big jump. All we can come up with is the generator seemed to run a little more this year, and we were in plowing a lot more, longer hours. So that means the building was up longer and running, a lot of colder nights. Usually when we're not there, it'll go into like a settle state. But if we're in and out, it stays up and running. So that's the only thing we can contribute. We looked at in the past. It didn't seem to be that much of a problem in the past, but it is now. We're not sure why. All right, let's, you want to start? You want to stop it? Okay, so we're going to talk about facilities a little bit. So we have 3 people in facilities. The facilities manager, Scott Willett, reports directly to me. We have 2 other workers. You can see the key points are basically daily cleaning and maintenance. One of the big things we do also is safety inspections. Run around, check your lights, check your all your stuff that's, we do what fire control and all of that. We work with the fire department as that as well. So here we did an increase on buildings and grounds. The EV charger maintenance has gone up, increase in electrical costs, which we've all seen in our houses. And the HVAC preventive maintenance program that we all signed on to, we were able to fit that into the budget this year, find places to do it, but we were kind of had to back off on some of our repairs. Nothing major, but this is the addition to that to try to keep it going on preventive maintenance. Our life safety systems was increased by 2540. That is things like sprinklers, our fire control systems. we found we had a lot hit up this year with 5-year that we weren't expecting. So Scott Willette's fairly new into it. When I came on board, the fire department was kind of keeping control a little bit of it. And of course, I walked in and went, nope, we're going to take it. And we did. They did a great job, don't get me wrong. And we worked with Dave. Dave's a great guy to work with. But we just felt it needs to come under one, and you're not kind of running around going, hey, what's going on here? What's going on there? So we had to ran into a lot of that with testing, inspection of sprinkler systems, and we're pretty much up to date now. So this right here, climate action grant, is fairly new to me. Megan Hess, Scott Willette really worked on this. So we received $50,943. And basically what we're doing is replacing Keith Anderson, we're replacing the water heater. We're also replacing the drafty front doors. And these front doors will be, all the doors we're putting in now will be access control ready. So these are all access control ready if we decide to go to full access control throughout the whole town. Birch Street, we're replacing an old water heater, and we're going to the heater pump style and upgrade the thermostats, spray foam in the basement, replace front door, same thing, and install new heat pump in the community room. Town hall, we're going to replace the old water heaters with heat pump water heaters. And WCPCF is getting a new heat pump in the lab, and we're going to relocate their thermostat, which is actually in the lab, but runs the whole facility. So the lab doesn't call for heat very often. So that's been an issue. So this is all getting covered. This was a no match, right, Megan? This was a no match, cost us no money. So they did a great job of this. And do you want to hold there? You want me to?
You want to take a break there, Chair?
Sure. Is Megan going to come up and do the environmental?
She will, but it's
Yeah.
probably, she's got a lot going on with this one too.
Okay.
So it's up to you folks.
Yeah, let's break it up. Start. Any questions to start on the right?
This came up last year. How much, or have you looked into contracting for services? Because one of the areas of concern is staffing, which is important, but, I'm thinking, have you looked into, whether mowing can be contracted or something else so that the Public Works crew could be doing more value add type of activities?
We have just to do the cemetery is $40,000. Just a rough one quick. I had a guy come up and go, give me an idea what it would cost.
Okay.
So we are also required to have we have to keep it to a point.
Yeah.
It's a good point. So I would throw this at you though. We could have them do other things. Megan's going to cover a couple things that are actually doing now and man hours that it takes. But a lot of it, I know with Leo, we've talked a little bit about construction. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the equipment to keep all those guys busy for that kind of stuff. If you're looking at doing more of the construction side of the house. Right now, we have a land use, in the summer, we have a land use group and we have a construction group. I purposely split those out this year to try to get more work done.
So then, from a staffing standpoint, what would you say are the pain points, I guess, where, if you had more staff hours, where would they be allocated to? Plowing. Okay.
I mean, we're pretty good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it's always nice to have more people, especially.
So hiring a mowing crew wouldn't help you get more people to plow that.
No, unfortunately. No, I mean, when you run into weather like this, then we're just kind of behind the 8 ball, but we just make it happen.
The Verizon sensors, those contracts, I didn't realize that police had them. Would there be a benefit to being on the same system as the police?
We looked at it, and I don't think so. We looked at the one Bangor had, and they had a really good user rate with them. And Verizon seems to be pretty constant throughout all municipalities. But we looked at it. I don't think there would be any cost benefit. as far
Or
as
not
just
even
managing.
just a cost benefit, but the human efficiency of maintaining 2 different systems.
It's a good point, but I think we'd still be at 2 different systems because I'd have to maintain mine, he'd have to maintain his. If that makes sense.
It does. Thank
We
you.
can hire somebody. Just saying.
Last question, and this may be overlapping with what Megan has also, the ash bore. So you had mentioned.
We are going to cover that in here.
Okay, then I will hold my question until after that then.
Excuse me. We are not.
We're not,
It's gonna
okay.
be in the, it's going to be in the capital plan. Go ahead with your question.
So yeah, that was my question. I believe we put some money in the capital plan for it. But I guess, I mean, coming from upstate New York where, you know, the ash bore's already been through, I think it's something that we should take, you know, even more seriously than we already are. And so, you know, from a funding source, what would you need to be able to treat, you know, at least the major trees, or, you know, come up with a comprehensive plan? I know Bangor's done something like that. They presented at Rotary
They have
a few
done-
months ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we consulted with the tree board on this, and their recommendation was to do with the 10,000 per year at this point. I do know there is some treatment of some trees, but not a lot of trees.
Yeah, we have a grant, in mind that's coming up in this summer that should be able to get the funding to treat the first and initial round of roughly 60 trees.
Can I can I follow up on that? Just a question to Clint. I was also wondering where the money was for that reserve fund for the Emerald Ash Borer. Is that in the capital plan you're telling me?
Correct. The way
Okay.
we split it out, capital is not in your operating budgets that we present now.
That's fine. I just wanted to be sure that's where it was. Thanks.
All right. I'm done trying to give you money. Let Leo take it away now.
You mean take it away?
Counselor Kenny's turn.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
I have a few questions, and I don't know if this is more capital or not, but I have not been able to find a list. There used to be a list of like roads for the next few years that we're going to do. I haven't seen that in the capital folder. And I can get to a question if we're asking questions along those lines. I'm curious. So we approved paving contract for several on Webster side and a few others. Is that the extent of the paving we're doing this summer?
For this summer, yes, sir.
It is. And are we doing any sidewalks this summer?
Yes, we are.
We
We
are.
do all sidewalks. So all Webster, wherever we're up in Webster, our guys are putting them in. And if you look at, I believe we got another one to do up on one of the other side streets up here.
Maybe this is for Clint. What about Main Street?
No. Main Street is not included in our plan. We have a federally directed spending for 3 million with MDOT that we're waiting for them to get that project off and running. And then we have the hopes of a $30 million project in the next quite a few
Right.
years,
Yeah.
undetermined amount of time.
So with the 3 million
Yep.
that we have for the sidewalks, does that mean we won't be doing them? That'll be done? by-
MDOT will be hiring a company to work with us and design it, and then that would be bid through them and spent through them. It's their money for the town of Orono for sidewalks and pedestrian safety in the downtown.
And that won't be touched this year?
They just put it out to the contractor to hire somebody to get them in to come do the work. So that's, again, a capital project that's in queue with no match by the town, but we have no timeline till they hire a company.
All right.
Yep.
They're in rough shape.
Agreed.
And on the I work with a Q. So that's the system that we bought a year or two ago, and we're going to make a go with it. Is that
We've
what
had
I'm
it
understanding?
quite a few years. I believe Mitch's group has had it for a few years. Before I came on board, they did a 3-year contract and added, like not facilities, but added anything with Public Works for our roads and our equipment and work order system.
And okay.
And so we were able to get, it was one of those things, it's a manpower issue, right? And so once we made a change and brought Megan on board, Megan's like, yeah, we can work on that. So we were able to revive it, get it up and running, make it work the best we can. We're trying to get our guys on board with it as well to input data. I mean, it's data in, data out, right? So you're only as good as what you're putting in.
Right.
But we're actually asking to add to it, whether that's going to be an iWork system or a different system. Doesn't really, for me, I'm agnostic that way. I could really care as long as we got a system in there. My biggest thing was a civic engagement, is to get a civic engagement portal up there so people can actually get a hold of us and we can direct it automatically where it needs to go, as opposed to a generalized email.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, a bigger thing is actually getting our buildings and facilities and heating systems and roads and all of that stuff in there, which So we haven't decided necessarily that that's what you're using. It's just for a system, and it may be that system or maybe a different system.
Might be another one. We're also
Okay.
looking at other ones that might go, hey, we can API into that. It might not to. I know we just looked at a product the other day that will scan all of our roads and give us within a month's time of where our potholes are, what condition they're in. It'll actually go out and reach and find all of our signs, what kind of condition the signs are in, whether they're hidden, whether they need repair. So, and it's not a lot of money. So, but that'll probably be coming forward another year.
Okay. And on the Verizon system, if you said it will tell us how fast it's going and whatnot, will it tell us, in the real time, is there a chart of what's been plowed, what hasn't been plowed,
Yes.
or anything like that?
I mean, yeah, I could look at that as you're out plowing. Yes, it doesn't tell you whether it's plowing, but correct. I can look at it real time or in past.
Okay. And back to Jacob's point about hiring contractors, I hope we'll at some point start to consider like interns as well for staff-led, you use a one staff member and 2 or 3 interns that, maybe that's not intern, it's summer help.
You mean like a part-time?
Yeah, just people home, kids home from college or whatever that are looking for summer work.
I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
It's just trying to find the people that will actually sign up for it is half the problem we do have.
Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Leo. Councilor Marks?
I don't think I have any questions. I just wanted to, Leo, I do think that Andrea was pointing out the list of the roads to be paved every year is in the capital improvement plan. I don't know, but Andrea, I think does. So I think it's
Okay.
there.
Okay. Councilor Hardison?
I don't really have a lot of questions because Jacob covered and then Leo with the part-time. And I just want to say, going through the capital improvements of the projects that you and your team have completed and the work that you do every day. I just want to say thank you and appreciate your leadership and your team's work ethic.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We appreciate that.
Councilor Larway?
Yeah, I mean, totally agree with everything Councilor Hardison just said. And going back to this staffing question, I think it was 2 years now. We're discussing these 2 positions that because they weren't filled, we took out of the budget and committed to asking or checking in with Public Works to see how that affected not just service level, but also staff morale. And I know this year's we had pretty consistent snow, and not necessarily huge storms, but just constant snow it felt. And, I see here that you're not asking for those positions, and that in future years, staffing would be an opportunity that could continue to be explored, but that you've adapted and been able to absorb the services with minimal impacts. I guess I'm curious how it's feeling for the staff.
It's okay. One of the things that we have is our mechanic actually plows. And so that if we have an issue, which we've been fortunate, we're lucky to have the crew we have. I've got probably 3 or 4 great guys that can work on equipment as well. You don't always find that. But the issue I would have is if he was not on like a Monday night, he works Tuesday through Friday. If we had a snowstorm on Monday and I've got a truck down, we can't call him in because we got to use him for plowing.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to have to pull a driver off. I'm going to have to pull the supervisor off. That essentially could be up to 2 trucks off the road at that time. We're lucky we've not had that happen, but it is a possibility. So what we'd like to do is eventually get back to, hey, leave him alone as a backup. We don't have to call him in unless we absolutely have to, or if somebody's out sick. Usually my 2 foremen, one of them would come in anyways and cover, but that doesn't always happen like that. So, but yeah, I think eventually as time goes on, if we could do it, it'd be helpful if we could just use him as a mechanic and get another person to plow. Yep.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Excellent. Anything else, Rob? Councilor Powers?
I remember when Rob Yerxa was leaving, and this probably is wrapped up with some of Leo's questions. He was compiling like all of the equipment, and this is probably part of the capital equipment improvement plan, but he was compiling all the equipment and then was going to make a document where we'd be projecting when we would need all that. And I know that wasn't finished, and I'm wondering how that work is going as we look into the future, how to budget for your upcoming equipment, whether you want to continue that or come to some other I don't know, arrangement for how we can try and project in the future what you'll need to get your job done. Thanks.
No, great question. We actually did complete it. I shouldn't say we, it was done before I came on board. So all the equipment, all the attachments, everything. I mean, I think I remember the first time I met with Clint, he was like, holy cow, really? Down to the minutia? And literally, they went down to the minutia of every piece of equipment we have. And so we do have it documented. It is in iWork, and we got several spreadsheets. And I would say, no, we stay the same direction he was going. It's really
Okay,
kind of look at.
That's really great to hear. Thank you so much. And thank you for all the work you guys are doing. I think that that'll help us see what's coming down the road for us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Matt. Just say thanks for all you do. It's if you don't, for Orono residents, if you don't ordinarily travel past the cemetery on Benneck Road at Memorial Day weekend, it is amazing, the condition. It's a great like metaphor or symbol for the work that Public Works does, is that one spot and how beautiful it is at that important time of year. So thank you.
Thank you. Mike Smart does a great job of that. He takes it personal and does a great job.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does a good job. Great. It's fantastic. Thank you. Now we are falling, and I'm the jokes to a minimum, but we're falling behind anyway. So we're gonna have to keep hustling. But Megan, you up? And I say that for us, not for anybody.
Two things I want to talk.
Oh,
to you
sure.
about. So we wanted to split this out. This is just the environmental operating budget, if you see in your summary. Two main things that I want to talk about are starting to invest in our stormwater infrastructure and starting to invest in land management. So that's $10,000 for each of those. And then those are the two lines at the end of my summary budget. So currently, if you think about our sewer camera, we go down to WPCF and we hook up to a trailer and we drive it down the road to a manhole, open it up, and take this heavier camera that's about 20 years old and put it into a sewer, hoping we don't drop it into the manhole and have to fish it out. So it's a little bit cumbersome. We have to look at the, turn on the generator before we use this and look at the computer screen that you see inside the trailer there and use our cell phone cameras to record any inspection data we want to send to contractors. So just to give you a little picture of what it's looking like. And so Chris and I work together to think about a camera that we might want to upgrade to. This would be a push camera. So essentially you can pick this up, you can put it right in the back of your truck. You can take it into manholes that are maybe not on the street. You just push the camera head in. So there's not a lot of lengthy training to it. It can record your imaging. You can send it to contractors. It is battery powered. A lot of different benefits of getting this camera. Also, it makes us more proactive in our inspections because it's easier to use. Another great thing about funding this camera is that if we put in $10,000 in the stormwater budget for this camera, the camera's $20,000. If we put in 10, WPCF can put in 10, and that also sets us up for a grant opportunity that we submitted, that grant would match us that 20,000 and give us 20,000 to use in stormwater improvements. So we did submit that grant, but that doesn't mean that we're bound to that grant by any means. If this doesn't get funded, we can back out of that grant if we get it. So that was the stormwater camera that would help us be a little more proactive in inspections. Another option that I wanted to bring to you guys was that a stormwater utility fee. Some municipalities in Bangor or in Maine, including Bangor, Portland, Lewiston, have the stormwater utility fee, and essentially it's a 1-year annual fee that residents would get. And that's it's a dedicated revenue stream for stormwater improvements and for clean water investment. So essentially what it is, there's a couple different options that you could do. You could actually use GIS like this map here, and you can see how much impervious surface you have per parcel, and you could make the fee based on how much impervious surface you have. Or you can just do a standard rate, like Bangor, I think it's $22 a year. And it's just based off the size of the lots and then that sort of thing. So I wanted to at least get this out in front of you guys as something to think about. That is an option that's coming forward. So if you want to talk further about that, just let me know. But there's also incentives that residents can do, like installing rain gardens and things like that, that could drop down their utility fee. Then the last request that I wanted to bring forth was creating a land management budget. So we're seeing increasing requests from residents for public land or right-of-way improvements. This can be anything as small as the Edgewood Circle here that we cleaned up to parks and trails. So we would be requesting $10,000 to create this budget. And really that would be for DEP permitting for certain projects if it's close to the river or water bodies or wetlands. Any safety equipment that the employees don't currently have because they typically haven't done this work. So dealing with any thorny, bushes or things like that. And, safety equipment and clothing. Also, that would be purchasing any native trees or shrubs to replant these areas. We don't want to just decimate the vegetation. We want to replant them with native species and for pollinators and diversity of plants. And then and then for fees for licensed commercial herbicide applicators. And just to give you an example, we have been doing these projects since 2022. And this is all the grant funds that we've gotten for projects like this that we're really happy with and we're going to continue to go after by all means. But there are some limitations to these grants. So the parcel has to be greater than 10 contiguous acres, which if you think about some of these places like that we want to get cleaned up, like Webster Park or the River Trail, or even some of the drainage ditches around or easements that some residents have, those are obviously a lot smaller than 10 acres. So we would need to be able to have funds to clean up these places. And also grant funding is unpredictable. It might not be here this year or next year. So. And we would argue that some of these smaller places are really valuable to residents. And so just for an example, this is the Union Street boat launch, and this is the Public Works crew taking their time, scraping back all the knotweed, allowing it to regrow so that we can spray it with herbicide. It's the 99, % way to kill knotweed, unfortunately. But now we have grass growing. We have a park that's actually usable space now. And the guys really do like doing these projects. They like seeing the before and after pictures like you see here and the usable space that it creates for everyone. But just to give you some perspective, this was over 3,000 hours of Public Works employees' time to do this park alone, whether it was meetings or cleanup, all of that. It does take a long time. So we do want to invest in that, and we want to keep that growing and clean up some more spaces as well. And then another quick example would be Webster Park as well. We're starting to clean up the shoreline, and we want to be able to continue on with that project. So that's my recap of my two environmental requests.
Okay. Counselor Baker? Counselor Kenny?
Yeah, thanks, Megan. Do we have any sort of sense for what we spend? I mean, she just mentioned 3,000 hours on staff time doing that. And I know we have rec money, I think, for doing trail maintenance and whatnot. So I guess this 10,000 is in addition to what we are already committed to in spending. And I'm curious, I'd like to know what that number looks like that we're already spending. Not off the top of your head, but to consider something like this, I'd want to know where we're at.
How much of the total staff time goes towards land management?
Well, I think we have some funds also committed, don't we, through rec or no? I mean, we just maybe that we just did 12.5. That was land.
Let me look at that. Yeah, that was
Okay.
a separate.
But I mean, 3,000 hours, that's a full-time person for a year and a half, right? So I mean, that's a considerable investment.
Is that just at the boat launch?
That was just at the boat launch. Based on, if you have someone driving a truck and hauling,
Yeah.
and some, 2 people on machines.
That's 4 people times, yeah.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't have ever estimated that $10,000 project because there was funds committed there too. I wouldn't have estimated that we
It doesn't.
that we
spend
actually
any of that.
committed
Yeah,
that.
but that doesn't include any of that $10,000.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Correct.
So Megan, you owe Megan.
No, and that's kind of something that we've
Yeah.
talked about, cleaning up, working really with land management, because those funds that are allotted to Megan's crew is really, that's recreation, that's trails, that's boat launch activities, those really are separate things. These parcels need to be cleaned up before the recreation's involved.
A lot of tree issues. We got a lot of tree trimming and stuff we have to do as well.
I've sent some information maybe to Bill. I don't think I've sent it to you, Megan, but on the does MS4 permit encourage more surface water? Because for me, I would rather see a swale. Like we've got a lot of streets that don't have it, and I personally don't like that we put curbs in. I don't think we've added any that I can think of, but for me, I'd rather not send it to the river. I'd rather not send surface water to the river to all go in one spot. I like the idea, and I've done a little reading, said some PDFs on it. What is the goal of our MS4 permit to be capturing everything and sending it to the river, or do they encourage us to not capture everything? And it just seems like, the swales.
Yeah, that's a good question. The MS4 permit itself does not tell you how to capture or how to remove. But the LID, the low impact development ordinance that will be coming because of that permit, that will talk about some of that with new development only. So they don't tell you swales versus pipes.
So how do we decide that? It's kind of I think it's a big discussion that I'd like us to have and consider, just because I personally, I don't think it's a great thing sending road water to the river. I think it's better dealt with where we can. So I'd like to not see us not grow that and think about other ways to deal with surface water.
Yep. And me and Adam Smart, the other foreman, just completed our green infrastructure training as well. That talks about some of those things to implement with new construction. So we're definitely thinking in that direction as well.
Okay, great. I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Marks?
I guess I just wanted to say thank you for some of the innovative ideas. I appreciated the fee for service for stormwater. To me, seems like a good idea to incent people to really be creating less of that runoff. I think that's a great idea. I've seen it in other communities. And I really do appreciate the fund for invasives and really thinking about a land management fund. I do think we probably need to talk about how much it costs to do the Union Street boat launch cleanup. And I know that at least over on Webster side, there's been a great deep appreciation for the park being returned to what people remember before the invasives took over. And that it had really gotten to the point that, you couldn't see the river anywhere except from up at the road anymore. And I'm glad you're going to be replanting native species. And I think it's bringing a lot of value back to that park, which I think our whole community enjoys. It's our biggest park in town. So I appreciate the thinking ahead about that and how to create a fund to support that. Thank you.
Councilor Hardison? Councilor Lowry?
Yeah, I also want to thank you for, how proactive you've been in really bringing a lot of money to your department, really reaching out for a lot of these grant opportunities. I think it's great to see. And I also agree with the value of doing a little bit more of this land management investment. I know we as several councilors have already said, we should discuss the boat launch costs, but also I would think that more planning for a lot of our other areas in town will cut down on costs like that. Once you've done that initial investment, I think the maintenance is far less. And I'm seeing you nod. So yeah, I think it's of value even with that initial cost. I think I'm glad we did it for that side of town. Although maybe we can talk about in a little bit more informed way when we're approaching these other projects, what exactly that's going to cost us. But anyway, just thank you for everything you're doing, and also a really well-organized presentation from the whole department.
Okay, Councilor Powers?
Thank you for that presentation. It's eye-opening to know what's going on and what you're projecting into the future. And I cherish the fact that I don't feel squeamish about swimming in still water. So I'm very pro keeping our amenity of clean water. And I think going into the future that will just probably pay back in benefits for future generations. So I'm also very for making sure that the water that we limit the wastewater that goes into the river, that runoff water, and that we have it as clean as possible in whatever way we can. And I think that maybe having us pay for how we use water and how we use our land is maybe a way for us to start thinking about going into the future, how we can best keep, Orono a clean and safe place to get into the rivers and lakes. Thank you.
Yep. I think it's amazing how you've recaptured and transformed some of our kind of both our particularly our riverfront spaces in the past year, and I think it's really been transformational. I appreciate it. And the fee for service piece that you talked about, is that, first of all, the camera seems like a pretty no-brainer to me. It looks like something out of War Games and Matthew Broderick in like the 1980s movie. What you're using now, the fee for service piece, is it in the budget now or is it proposed for the budget?
That was just a discussion point.
Just a discussion point?
Yep.
Okay. Great. And that's all we had, I think. So
Thanks.
thank you so much.
Can I, just a clarification on that? So I think the way it sounded like the way you said that, it would just be one of the ways people do it is like a flat fee, I think you said. So like everybody pays $17 or something. It's not really to do with like usage or you're going to build a house, or it's nothing to do with that, correct?
There's multiple ways that people have done it. They've just taken a base fee and said, this is basically the amount of impervious surface that is on average on a single house lot. And we're going to do a base fee of Bangor, I believe, is $22 a year. Some other people have taken more of an approach that if you have a larger lot size or if you have abandoned buildings that, you're still leaving up or things like that, you're going to be paying more per that unit. But that can be a community, how you decide those numbers out. There's multiple different ways to do it.
I appreciate that. And I think that is it's a important and community-wide discussion, I think, for sure, because it effectively amounts to a new tax, right? So I think that's important.
It's a fee, not a tax. It's completely different.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Revenue enhancer. Is that what? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
We got Chris next.
Yep.
Good evening, guys.
Hello there, Mr.
Quick
Crew.
WPCF. So I have a nice modest 4% increase in my budget this year. That represents roughly $80,000 over last year increase. 50 of that is money that's going into reserves. And the other 30 is basically just some modest increases in some different lines. Repairs to building has gone up. I've increased equipment rental 33% only because we need to take some equipment out this year that requires a boom truck. We'll have to have it come twice. So I increased that to cover the cost of that. I've also had a modest increase in my overtime for staff for the on-call. They've been operating since 22 with 1.5 men less than we have now. And not only does it have a higher workload when they're at work, it always requires each one of them to have more call time, more holidays, more weekends, more getting up at night. So I felt it was appropriate to increase pay for that. My fuel is up a little bit only because they've changed the way municipalities are tax exempt. They've been selling us fuel without tax. They're actually allowed to charge us tax, and they've started to do that. So I've increased the fuel budget a little bit. Sludge disposal is up $4,000. You'll notice zero in my budget, 0% increase. That's because I got the rate increase about 5 days ago, and it just didn't get changed yet. That's expected. Sludge disposal goes up every year. I haven't seen a year yet when it hasn't. And we can expect it to go up more. I just had a conversation with the landfill manager last week. They're in the pilot stages of PFAS removal for leachate. So leachate comes from water out of the landfill, and sludge has a lot of water. So a lot of the leachate comes from sludge, and that's who they're going to make pay for it. The people that put the leachate there are gonna pay for it. I don't know what that's gonna be. They're required to put this system in under their expansion agreement with the state. They have to put in PFAS removal. I don't yet know what method they're gonna use, but whatever it is, will be in the millions, and we can expect sludge disposal to keep going up. I do want to mention that the money that I have now for UV upgrade, that equipment comes from Canada, comes from Toronto. And they informed me last week that that cost is going to go up 5% due to the tariffs. Surprise, surprise. I'm going to meet with a representative from the manufacturer next week, week after next, end of the month. There are some discounts. If we put this upgrade in sooner, they give us discounts, just, they just want your money, right? But those discounts may very well, offset the 5%. So hopefully there'll be some good news there. So, that's my nice modest 4% increase on my budget. Now, the big picture for WPCF is my capital plan. And that involves asking council to approve a 15% rate increase over 3 years to generate the funds to bond $6 million to be used for new dewatering facilities and the pipe here on Main Street. That will be the bulk of it. Some of it will be used for some smaller projects. And that increase would also give us $100,000 left over to put in reserves from the principal on the bond. So dewatering, like I just spoke of, we have a machine that was put in 1991, and it uses technology that was developed in the 60s. There's much better things out there today that can dewater sludge. At best, we can get 12% solids. If we move that up and get 20 and move it up 8%, that's a savings in landfill cost of roughly $11,000. That's not a whole lot, but the idea behind dewatering alternative is not to save money in disposal fees. It's drier product they're talking at the landfill about moisture limits. Some landfills in the state of Maine already have them, which means if you don't have a moisture content, they give you a limit, say 20%. If you don't meet 20%, they won't take it. Or they'll charge you a surcharge for every percent you're below the limit. So if we're still bringing 12 and they say 20, then one landfill that comes to mind charges $3 per percent. So that would be $21 more per ton. And, we take 1,500 ton per year. You do the math, that's a big increase. If you don't meet the moisture limit. New equipment will allow us to do that. It also is a big benefit to transporting the sludge. I have one man that spends 7 weeks of the year transporting sludge. Of that 7 weeks, 4 of those weeks, he's literally sitting on the landfill waiting for the guy to tell him to come dump. The other 3 weeks is spent driving back and forth. I would love to free that guy up to do something else. New dewatering equipment is pretty much automated. Some plants have this equipment start with when people are still home in bed. I won't operate that way because I don't want that type of equipment running without somebody there. But my point is, it doesn't need to be, nobody needs to babysit it. And it takes a long time to get it started. It takes a long time to clean it up. So it will free up a man in that respect. Of that dewatering alternative, that would have to include a conveyor modification. We don't have the means to, if we had an outside vendor truck our sludge, they would do it with a 30-yard container, not a dump truck. We don't have a conveyor that can fill a container. So we need to modify the one we have. And I've been proactive in that respect. And the design for that conveyor is almost done. And my plan would be to do the conveyor now, get somebody else trucking our sludge, and then move on to the actual press. So yeah, a lot of money. It's a big ask. But the last time that Orono did this was 2006, when we had an upgrade, and we did the same thing. We had a multiple year increase to pay for it. The dewatering at that time was not part of the upgrade, because the dewatering, it wasn't as old as it is now. So that was left in place. That's probably,
Big finish.
yeah, any questions?
Um,
I'm sure you do.
yeah, nope. So over here with Jacob.
Is the university's on our sewer system?
They are.
So do they pay sewer?
University pays the same rate as owner residents.
All right.
Yep.
And then so going to the increased fees, and I know that we had talked about this last year, and I believe at that time, Clint and others ran some figures, and I think that, you know, our sewer rates are on the lower end compared to towns in this area.
They are. I do have a sheet.
It's probably what was shared with us 6-7 months ago.
Yeah. I can find it.
So anyways,
Page 29.
yeah. So I think I'm in favor of the increase, though. If we don't end up doing this project, Route 2, I guess, will the sewer lines still need to be replaced? Yeah, will the sewer lines still need to be replaced?
Yes.
Okay. So then my follow-up question is, then what's going to happen to that money if we don't replace them? But it sounds like those lines need to be replaced.
still-
That project needs to be done regardless of whether we do the
Yeah,
the
the-
bigger
Definitely.
project or not.
And I would like you to understand that this pipe on Main Street literally represents hundreds of homes. It takes all the side streets, Westwood, Spencer, it takes Sailor Development, high school. So it's a lot more than just the homes on Main Street. And it will also eliminate the cross-contamination that's happening with storm sewer down by Ledbetter's. So there's an MS4 violation down there. You know, when we report that, the first thing they ask is, what are you gonna do about it? And that's $6 million is what we're gonna do about it.
Yeah, and I would just add, I mean, yeah, with the planning with MDOT and whether Route 2 and how those funding mechanism works, we've really made the decision that the sewer project will progress on its own. The savings was minimal, as we discussed, if even measurable, at no more than $100,000 to time them together. And we just kind of recognize that with 104-year-old pipe, we're replacing
102.
102.
It's getting there.
So I don't want to get them offended. They're only 102, but that's old. I mean, we're dealing with very old pipe. We do have some of those issues. So it's just time. And working with, which will definitely happen sooner, and I shouldn't call it just the downtown, but the $3 million CDS funding for pedestrian upgrades. We'd want to get those, get the sewer in and done before we do those. And right now they're kind of working out that the sewer would probably happen next year. And the road work would be happening probably in the fall thereafter. So you're looking, these timelines could be pretty quick, depending on how
We'd be
the,
required to do the sewer before any DOT work anyway.
yeah.
It'll have to happen first.
So
An added benefit to replacing that sewer is every home on Main Street will get, we replaced service lines from the main to the property line. So in this instance, both sides of Main Street, any building that's connected, the pipe will be made new from the road up on beyond the sidewalk. So at the town's cost, not the homeowner, just because it's pipe that's in the town right away. So that pipe is just as bad as the pipe we're replacing. You may not realize it and think about it sometimes, but if you was to take all of the pipes from every house that is connected to the town sewer, it would equal the town sewer again. So we don't really have 25 miles of pipe, we have 50. And those pipes take in just as much water as ours do. They have roots, they break, they collapse. Homeowners just by nature don't proactively take care of them like we do. They wait until there's actually a catastrophic failure and then, we gotta call a plumber.
Okay, Counselor Kenny?
So when you do that, if someone's got 75 feet from the right of way to their house, and that's maybe as old as that line, we don't touch that other than to connect to it, I take it? And is that a problem?
We would take it from the new pipe that we put in.
Yeah,
We would take the homeowner's pipe from the new pipe back to their property line, to the
their
right,
property
the edge
line.
of the right of way.
right, but there could be, we're going to disturb it when we connect to it to something that could be 100 years old that might have another
Oh,
75
yeah,
feet.
definitely.
Yeah. Right,
Probably
we can't,
95% of the pipes that are still there were put there when the pipe was put in Main Street. They put in a pipe and everybody tied into it and was,
wonder how,
yay. I'm sure there's a few that have been replaced over the years. I can think of a few actually.
yeah,
Another thing that happens sometimes when you do that, the homeowner ends up with, well, if you just go another 15 feet, my whole pipe's brand new. And there's no better time for the homeowner to get a good deal because the contractor is there, his equipment is there, his crew is there. Yeah, we'll go the extra 15 feet and make it all brand new. But that extra 15 feet would actually be the
cost of the homeowner,
expense.
and time of the contract and all that stuff would be.
We encourage that.
So, yeah, sounds like that would
Owners
be
will do it.
interesting scheduling. You mentioned something, I think you said once it's where we get it to 20%. You talked about having someone else drive the truck or something like that.
Well, we would have a container that would sit. When it was full, we would call for somebody to come get it.
Is there any,
They would come get it and leave us an empty.
that seems like, is that something you've considered even doing now or no?
Yeah,
With-
that's why
regardless of-
I've already have the conveyor designed.
Oh,
'Cause
no, I mean, having someone,
Well, we
rather than having your person sit for
can't
7
fill a
weeks.
container without modifying the conveyor.
Okay. I
Right
see,
now, we just
I
have a
see.
conveyor, a truck sits underneath it and
Oh.
fills. With a container,
Different
from
setup.
ADU, and it won't fill the other end.
I see.
So we have to put in a horizontal conveyor to carry it.
Okay. And the 5% per year, it's 5% per year to get the 15%, 5% per year.
5%. So
So 5% over 3 years, sorry, that's 5% a year is what we're
3%
doing.
this year would bring us from 675 to 709 on 100 on a rate. That's an annual increase of $27. $27.20.
And then again next year and then again the following year.
Right.
So by the end of that, we're up.
And the three of those years together would generate $318,000 to bond the 6 million.
And in 3 years, we're up average of $78 per.
In 3 years, it would be at 740. Excuse me, 781.
78.
Which gets the minimum rate payer. Do you have that number?
The minimum would go to, in 3 years, the minimum would be 93.
And it's currently,
It's currently at 81.
Okay.
Per quarter or per year? That's per
Per
year.
quarter,
Oh, per
the
quarter.
minimum per quarter.
So what that number you just gave me that's per quarter or that's per year?
The 93?
Would you say it's going to go up? I had
The-
78
The
times.
minimum charge would go from 81 to 93 in 3 years.
But the average rate payer, I thought is what you first gave me.
In 3 years, that would be 781 per 100.
781 per.
$7.81 per 100 cubic feet.
And what's the typical?
What's typical for a homeowner?
Yeah.
It varies. Some people use less than the minimum.
Right.
Some people use double.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, Council Marks?
Mostly thank you. Really clear presentation, very helpful. My only follow-up was just to Leo's question about when the sewer lines are done on Main Street, is there some sort of proactive notice that will go out to homeowners saying we are going to replace the pipe this far? And if you would like to talk to the contractor about doing the remaining part that belongs to you, they are notified ahead of time so they don't just happen to have to be there on the day the contractor's there to catch them? Or is there a way
Yeah,
that that's
absolutely.
proactively sent out?
We can make a narrative and explain how that can all happen.
Excellent. Council Hardison? Council Lowry? Council Powers, you have anything?
No,
He
just thank
doesn't,
you.
do we do, have we, has there been any transition to like online payments or anything like that? Or is it still all, do we still do it all paper-based?
No, people pay online. As a matter of
We doing
fact,
it-
Shelley has a new system that's just been implemented in Trio that I guess is working quite well.
Okay.
It's not just sewer, they can do taxes and other things.
Yeah. It's not automatic though, right? You still have to go in and manually input your payment and stuff like that?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I don't mean, sorry, we can talk about it some other time. I just, sorry.
They can schedule payments to be done automatically or on the quarter. The only caveat of the system is you have to have an active balance or an active bill before you can set up the automatic schedule of payments to be made.
Okay.
But that is a change from what we had previously with the Inform Me system.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Yep,
So
thank
that
you.
concludes our budget. We had one more, I know Council Marks had one more question. Or do you want to, but before we do that, anybody have anything else? Okay, Council Marks, you had one more question for, I think, the fire department?
Well, actually, for the town manager, I just realized I forgot during the fire department discussion. On page 110, we got some information in Appendix 3 about inflation and COLAs over the years. And for the most part, these inflation and COLA amounts look to be, you know, somewhere between 3.5 and max 12%. But there's this very high spike on FY 2021. With a green line, which I think is the fire department union. It's IAFF COLA. Can someone just speak to what that big spike up to 34% COLA increase in 2021 was about? Thanks. That was my guess, but I just wanted that on the record for anyone in the community who's listening that we made a work week shift there. It's not like everybody got this huge pay raise in 2021. Thank you.
Okay. All right, our next, Clint, we have here this update budget summary. Anything here you want to talk to about that? Number 4, top of the second page.
Just gonna tell you it's done, but I haven't reviewed it with the staff, so I want to read it before I give it to you as a public document and make sure it's matching up the way I expect it to, but it is prepared and you'll see it in the next few days.
Okay, and for those who want to attend the next budget workshop, Monday, June 2nd, and that's where we'll have the council discussions about decisions, directions, and onward from there. Now we're gonna move into starting a little later than anticipated, I apologize. But we're moving into a town council, meeting. First item up is always agenda review. These are the items that are referred to our various committees for our information and the public's. I don't have anything to touch on or add here. We tabled, Orono financial audit, which will be on our agenda later on in today's agenda. And are there any items for agenda review or clarification from members of the council? Good. Item number 5 is approval of minutes for May 12th, 2025. Could I have an order, motion?
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? We have to do a roll call because, I guess, Matt, if you could yell out your window, but since you can't, Matt, we're going to come to you last on these roll calls, okay? So we're going to do a roll call. Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardaway,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Demerits in favor, Councilor Kenny,
Favor?
Councilor Baker,
Favor.
Councilor Powers.
In favor.
Okay, that's unanimous, 7-0 for our notes. Clint, you're managing those, so I just kind of talk in your direction. Is that right? Okay, thank you. Public comments, an opportunity for anyone in Orono to provide feedback to the council, and we welcome it. We ask that people cap their comments at 5 minutes and not speak to anything else on the agenda. Is there anyone with us this evening who'd like to speak to the council on that item not on our agenda? Great. Anybody online, Cody? All right. Or on number 7, presentations and discussion items. We don't have any. Acknowledgement, we're going to skip, unless someone has something pressing, we're going to skip acknowledgements because we start with a workshop. Consent agenda, item 9. The consent agenda is an opportunity to move a block of items as one single action with no discussion by council or members of the public. Any member of the public or any councilor can ask that any member on our consent agenda be removed from that agenda and be taken up as a separate action item as a normal course of business. Are there any concerns or any requests to pull anything off the consent agenda from any councilor or member of the public? Hearing none, I take a motion to move the consent agenda.
So seconded.
Moved and seconded. We'll do a roll call. Councilor Larway,
Favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Damaris in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor?
Councilor Baker,
In favor.
Councilor Powers.
In favor.
Excellent. That passed unanimously 7-0. Next up is our action items, and we'll take an order 25-103, removing order 25-88 from the table. Could I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Okay. Councilor Larway,
Favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Damaris in favor, Councilor Kenny,
Favor?
Councilor Baker,
Favor.
Councilor Powers.
In favor.
Okay. Could we have we've now taken, do we need to order 25-88 again? All right, we're still off the table. We have a motion to move order 25-88.
So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, okay? And this is an order accepting the FY24 Town of Orono financial audit. Do we have a presentation from either the finance committee or staff?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry, that was an order question and I said yes. So yes, Cody is going to put the presentation on the screen. All right, perfect. Thank you. So the finance committee a couple of weeks ago had our auditors come and formally present the fiscal year audit to us. As part of that, they talked about kind of where we stood financially, along with the audit process. And this is the presentation that they put together. And at the end of this, we will need to approve or not approve formal acceptance of the audit. The finance committee has already reviewed and has provided its approval. So next slide, please. So we received an unmodified opinion, which is good. The auditors found no material weaknesses that would suggest that there's anything improper going on. Again, a good thing. They found several deficiencies. They were in two main categories, and both were not areas of great concern after Finance Committee discussed that with both our auditors and town manager. The first group had to do with some discrepancies in payroll. Not that people were being overpaid, but just in the way that we tracked it and some of the formal sign-offs that had happened. Again, not, people were not being overpaid or paid incorrectly. The bulk of this was related to just general staff turnover, and with a new town manager coming online and a new finance manager coming in. Again, nothing of great concern, and they've since put in practices to rectify this. The other area had to do with some capitalization of road work, and so we were capitalizing projects that we should have expensed. Again, this was kind of a training item and related mostly to staff turnover. After discussion with the auditors and staff, again, Finance Committee did not have any concern with this finding, and practices and procedures have been put in place to correct it. We did go back and look at the prior couple of audits, and these were not on those audits, so it's not like these are systemic to our financial management. Okay, next slide. So the next few slides just talk about our overall financial position, and generally speaking, we are in a good financial position from a town. This talks about where we have our current funds, and the bulk of our funds generally are unassigned, meaning that we can, there are no restrictions put on them. They're not held in reserve, et cetera. Next slide, please. Next slide looked at our overall revenues and where we were in comparison to the budget last year. And as you can see, we were up. There's a positive variance in investment income and charges for service, much like staff had talked as part of this upcoming budget process. We have greater levels of return on our investments. And then also because of a lot more activity in the town, our fees or services have gone up. So both are good in my mind. Next slide, please. Again, this is all kind of things that we had talked about during last season's budget process and then at the Finance Committee's monthly review. But generally speaking, expenses were in line with last year, except for capital expenditures, which we had discussed last year at nauseum. And so one of the biggest reasons that we had a positive variance to budget, meaning that we spent less than we budgeted, was the Webster project that got postponed until this year. So that money, while it wasn't spent, it was set aside in reserves, and that project is beginning this year. Next slide, please. Revenue distribution, not surprising that the bulk of our revenue comes from taxes. Next level is intergovernmental from the state. And then the final important slide that we talked a lot about is our unassigned fund balance. Sorry, next slide, please. And so this is where the Finance Committee had a lot of discussion, and it's something that we will bring to the overall council. As you can see, that our unassigned fund balance as a percentage of budget has continued to increase over the years. And while on one hand, this is a good thing because essentially we have a larger savings account and we continue to build our savings account, at some point it becomes inefficient to hold this much cash. So Clint and Finance Committee and our auditors had talked about different ratios that we should be watching. And as Clint starts developing next year's capital plan and budget, we will have some conversations about, whether it's meaningful to spend down some of these or, continue building it up, knowing kind of what we have coming in the future.
Can I say one thing
yeah.
about that? Just to point out that although the note on the side says that the company generally recommends 8 to 17% held in unassigned funds, when we spoke to them about that for bond ratings, though, they said that for the very highest bond ratings, they sometimes want around 20. Correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. So again, yes, that is right. And that this will play into our bond rating. It's one of many factors. So that is part of the discussion as to where we want that level to be. And then the final slide, please, is just in how we spend our money. And given our conversations, not surprising that the bulk goes to education, public safety, and public works, which should not come as a surprise to anybody. So with that, all of us thought that was a very helpful presentation. I hope that we'll continue to get this going forward. And if anybody has any questions, the collective we will do our best to answer them.
Any questions or?
I have a question, but I want to just kind of reiterate for myself, and I think I can't speak for the others, but I'm happy with the direction, the work that has been done and the direction we're going on staffing. It's a pretty big deal that over the last year, we've had a lot of transition. I think really there's nobody in the same role in that department from a year ago, technically. So different roles, different people. And as stated, the deficiencies were paperwork that didn't catch up on payroll and stuff like that. But overall, I think considering the change we've dealt with, I want to just commend the staff and on the work that's being done. And again, I think we're heading in a really good direction. So,
Excellent. Good to hear. Any questions? This is an action item. So on action items, any comments from the public? Any concerns about how much we're spending on education from this side of the room? No? Well, we got through the workshop. Our good friend, the chair of the school board is here, so I'm just teasing. For those who can't see the audience at home. Any other discussion? Okay, now we do a roll call then. Councilor Larway, this is to accept the audit report. Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor.
Councilor Demaris in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor?
Councilor Baker,
In favor.
Councilor Powers.
In favor.
Excellent. That passes unanimously 7-0. The next order, this is where Amanda usually keeps me on track. The next order is Order 25-104. This is an order establishing the Orono Good Neighbor Committee's goals as the following. Could we have a motion to put it on the table?
Motion.
And a second? Moved and seconded. How do you want to handle discussion on this, Clint? You want
Quickly? No, so you couldn't resist.
I wrote
I
them,
have a
so
lot
let's
of
just move to.
to? Those who note, the final item on our agenda tonight is finalizing the town manager's evaluation.
Oh, too soon, huh? All right. Now, I think that, I put a note there for the community, for the council. There was some great information, but again, it became best probably just to give you a sample. So the first section for 25-104, the first order is your goals. You'd said 3 to 5 was what the actual vote was last week. This is 4. I think what I would say is that if there is consensus, I think you could move quickly to a vote. If you'd like to change these, I'd go goal by goal.
Yep. I would say they came in from, we had a document that I told myself to do and put in front of everybody that was, it was forward as it has been in the past with me, and it will be again in the future. But I appreciate this council's willingness to let me put something out there and then listen and kind of work together on how it actually goes from there. But we got some feedback from, as I recall, Councilor Marks had some feedback in writing that shaped this, and then Councilor Baker to, in an effort to get his vote, we just took what he provided in this last update and just ran with it word for word. So unless anyone has something they'd like to see changed, I'm ready to, yeah. And I think we need to hear from the public too, but let's hear.
Public first?
I think we should hear from the public first, if there's any public comment on these goals. Anybody online? Okay, great.
Did he say yep?
Nice. Hi, Deanna. This is the Orono Town Council.
Hey there,
Go
this
for-
is Deanna Prince, 125 North Main Avenue. And in just reviewing these goals, one thing that I noticed is I'm not sure that they're measurable when I look at them. And my experience in writing goals is that you always want to have measurable outcomes. I understand the need to maybe make them broad, but I would like to see something measurable.
All right, you're gonna throw down the gauntlet. You want to offer some suggestions?
I thought
This is how we roll here, right?
However,
So, yeah.
I came kind of
Yeah.
unprepared for that, unfortunately.
No, I think it's a good note. I don't mean to put you on the spot, so thank you. Does anyone have any? Okay. Thank you, Deanna, for.
Yep.
Is Deanna, am I pronouncing it correctly? Thank you for that. All right, are there any other public comments? And I didn't want to cut you. I apologize if I cut you off. Is there anything else? Okay. Cody, that's it? Online? All right. How about council discussion? Councilor Marks, you had something?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to thank Jacob for this. I think it's a really great place to start our discussion from. And I love the idea of measurable. If someone's got language about that, I'll sit and think about it as other people are talking. But the thing that jumped out at me is that there isn't anywhere in here that mentions people actually feeling safe. And I do think that, some of the recent events in Webster side, safety is a big thing. So I'm curious if we can add that to either goal 1 or 2. I mean, perhaps it could say ensuring that all residents feel welcome, respected, and safe, for one possible place to put it.
I like that. I think that's great.
Let's tally these good suggestions for one amendment, if that makes sense. Okay. Any other input? Any other discussion?
I have input, but I've just a comment on that. Adding an ordinance so people feel safe. I guess I'm back to the Deanna's comment on measuring. How do you measure someone's feelings?
I guess if you want to say,
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
it's not an ordinance
Yeah.
we're setting, it's a goal. So there isn't an ordinance requirement for that. So I
Okay.
agree about your discussion about how we want to measure that. So I'd love to have that. But
Yeah, okay, so a goal of making people feel safe, I think is a little, it's obviously very subjective, and I don't know how you accomplish that, but my original comment was going to be on number 2, and it's maybe along similar lines, but I feel like define and promote good neighbor standards, develop clear enforceable expectations for neighborhood behavior. And I feel like, again, council defining a resident's behavior to me, let's keep in mind that I believe we are not and cannot separate classes of people, and we don't want to. So not renters, not students, nothing. So this is, it feels like an overreach to try to set a standard for residents' behaviors to me. And yeah, you can make the case, well, I mean, because we have laws, if you break laws, we have police, but that's law enforcement. So
is that a regulation of behaviors?
what's that?
If we have an enforced ordinance, is that not regulation of some behavior?
When they break the law?
Yeah. So
Right.
any ordinance change that we'd be doing is, in a sense, regulation of behavior.
Hmm.
I'm happy to continue discussing this. I also wanted to say, well, first of all, I support Sarah's proposed amendment about adding safe to that first item. In answering the question about it, I guess, quantifiability or measurability, I think I said it last meeting, I see the value in specificity. And at the same time, I feel like part of what I value about this is that we're not, again, predetermining what the outcomes need to be of this committee. But I think these still give a direction where I think one of the outcomes from the committee would hopefully be some more measurable recommendations for how we ought to proceed. And one thing I want to be, sorry, I'm saying several different items here, and feel free to respond to anything I'm saying, but I did have one potential revision that I also wanted to put through, which is on to, sort of in line with what you were raising, Leo. Develop clear enforceable expectations for neighborhood behavior through local ordinances. Perhaps, I mean, I'm interested in exploring ordinance changes, but perhaps we could even, and I don't know whether people feel like this softens it too much, but say through local ordinances and or any other, I know we've used the word levers, but any other methods that seem effective and reasonable. I don't know how we would want to word that, but I guess I want to leave it open that it doesn't have to be ordinance changes maybe, or maybe we do want to say that specifically we want to ask for recommended ordinance changes. I just thought that that's worth asking.
And so my intent with that, to get to Leo and Rob's point, is that I wasn't talking about just tenants. I was talking about residents and tenants. So while you may have ordinances in place or actions, consequences for certain behaviors, I also would want to this process to develop expectations or good practices for the neighbors, so that the first, maybe I'm being too naive, but so that first call is, to your neighbor, because you have met them when you move out, not necessarily to the police saying, hey, you're being too loud. Again, maybe I'm being too naive in that, but to foster more cooperation between the different classes of people that live in these neighborhoods.
Rob, do you have a suggested language change there to develop clear enforceable expectations for neighborhood behavior through local ordinances and what?
Well, that's sort of, I was trying to figure out how I might phrase that. I would like to see local ordinances and or programming, I think that's a great word, Councilor Hardison. I don't know if any other people are feeling that ordinances is already.
Could it be community programming and policing to get both? Because I know I think that there's been some progress. I know that, I don't know if we were to talk about it, but I know the disruptive property ordinance has been a topic that the town managers looked into and had some productive discussions on with some folks. And
I wonder if we want to avoid getting too into the weeds with this, although I see all of this is valuable, perhaps it's just develop clear enforceable expectations for neighborhood behavior through methods that could possibly include ordinances.
What if we just say through,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Methods.
yeah, what if we just say through local ordinances and or other means? Period.
That's exactly what I was trying to get
How
at.
do you
Thank
feel?
you. That's so much simpler than what I was moving around.
profound, perhaps not, but simpler, yes. Yeah.
That's much better. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's number 2.
I wonder if we could also make a suggestion based on on Deanna's comment and some conversation here on council. Does it make sense to add a 5th goal, which would actually say something along the lines of bring suggestions to council for how to measure these metrics and improvements? Right.
Yeah.
Someone want to wordsmith that one?
Goal 5, tangible, develop measurable metrics.
So bring suggestions to council for measurable metrics.
MM. I'm sure Dan could put together a logo or something for that.
You know what? I could. That's the nicest thing you ever said to me. I really appreciate that. All right. Developable, measurable metrics. Develop recommendations,
I
suggestions.
said bring suggestions to council for measurable metrics.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other changes? We didn't hear anything on number 3 or number 4.
I think overall these do still. I mean, I respect Deanna's concern about measurable metrics. I'm glad we've incorporated something on that. I do feel like these strike a pretty good balance of leaving some room for interpretation for when all the levers are being explored by the committee, what really is going to be needed, without sort of letting it be really carte blanche. I mean, I feel like these do define sort of what we're trying to get at. So I do appreciate the wordsmithing we've done here, but also the work that went into creating these. And thank you, Jacob, for sort of laying them out in this way.
I have a number 4. This feels backwards to me, that we're looking to come up with a way for council to make recommendations to the comprehensive planning regarding the role of rental properties in Orono's future development. To me, that feels like that's actually more a council role than a comprehensive planning committee, because we're the elected officials.
Leo, is that addressed by simply saying provide recommendations to the council and comprehensive planning committee? Can we just add the word council in there?
Yeah.
You're going to look good in this chair someday, Jacob. I can't wait. All right. Anything? I'll still be here. I'm going to sit down there in the end and I'm going to.
Heckle?
All right. Anything else? Is anyone brave enough to offer an amendment with these changes?
I think I got it.
Council Marks has the floor to offer an amendment.
I will attempt. So we would be amending goal number 1 to say at the end, ensuring that all residents feel welcome, respected, and safe. We would be amending goal number 2 to say, develop clear enforceable expectations for neighborhood behavior through local ordinances and or other means, period. We would be amending goal number 4 to say, provide recommendations to the council and comprehensive planning committee regarding, et cetera. And we would be adding goal number 5 to say, bring suggestions to council for measurable metrics. I get them all.
I believe that's correct. Can I second that? Nope.
Measurable metrics for the four previous goals.
With these four
The
goals?
Convoluted sentence, so, but the sense is there.
If someone wants to change
No,
it, jump
no,
right
that's-
in.
that says,
That's, you know, it's good, you know, it's government when it's reads like that. And we're not making decisions behind closed doors, so. All right. Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion on Council Marks? What's that? Council Marks. She's the bravest.
Just took notes.
Yeah, you did. All right, that's moved and seconded. Any other discussion on the proposed amendment? Okay, Council Larway,
In favor.
Council Hardison,
In favor.
Council Marks,
In favor?
Council Demerits in favor, Council Kenny,
In favor?
Council Baker,
in favor.
Council Powers.
In favor.
Thanks, Matt. That's unanimous, 7-0. Thank you for that work. Nope, now we gotta,
Yep.
okay, can I get a motion on the amended order?
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
The
I don't know that we
original
needed to
motion
do
was-
that.
well, Actually, the original motion was already Jacob Baker and Andrea.
yeah,
Oh,
we
right.
already have it. Now, is there any discussion before we finalize, we adopt the amended goals?
No, just to be clear that we're still going to talk about charge in our next order, correct? So all we're trying to do here is get the goals. Okay.
We've got a lot of momentum though,
Got
which
it.
is good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll move to a vote if there's no comment. Okay, Council Lowry,
In favor.
Council Hardison,
In favor.
Council Marks,
In favor?
Council Demerits in favor, Council Kenny,
Favor?
Council Baker,
Favor.
Council Powers.
In favor.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, that settles the goals, 5 goals. And good work. Order 25-105, we have a motion.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, order setting a charge for the Orono Good Neighbor Committee. So we asked our town manager, and as typical, he delivered, to provide us a set of levers for us to discuss. We did not draft up a draft charge, but we wanted to instead have and I apologize for the hour, but we wanted to have a kind of an open discussion based on the levers that Clinton had provided us.
Is there a copy? My computer died.
Go ahead. What?
I'll share it with you.
Is there a copy?
All right. So it's linked in the agenda that's online.
Looks like Jacob's sharing his with Leo, so we're good.
And Clint, do you want to talk us through your process and thinking or? Oh, well, Council Marks has a suggestion for, do you want to offer your suggestion first? Do you want to hear from Clint?
Either way.
Oh, go ahead.
That gives me that helps me know what.
It might simplify things if other counselors are in a similar place to me. I think that I would be very comfortable with a charge which basically asks this committee to work to achieve the 5 goals that we have given them. And in that process, to examine all of the levers that Clint has put in the levers document. And I would like to add one, because going through the levers document today, I noticed there was no reference to the occupancy ordinances. There's reference to the noise ordinances and the public nuisance ordinances, but I think that the occupancy ordinances are relevant to this discussion as well. So I would like to see those added with a specific eye to be sure we take a look again at the definition of family, and that is as broad as we want it to be sure we're fully inclusive of all types of families in Orono. So I would just want to see every lever Clint brought forward looked at along with the occupancy ordinances, and specifically being sure our family definition is broad enough to be inclusive of all families. And I had a couple other small points, but that would be my general suggestion.
I think that could move us along a lot faster if we go that route. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. But can we also add the existing levers that the disorderly property, noise ordinances, all that stuff should be in here, to understand where we're at today.
Sure.
Needs to be there too. And I
Yep.
don't know if we have to say that in this statement or not, but examine existing first and foremost. I think that to me seems like it's a starting point, and then examine additional levers.
I like it. Anybody else? Councilor Baker?
Question, yes.
Yeah.
So as part of this process, will there be a way for public or council who is not on the committee to submit specific examples? For example, I've had a couple community members say, these levers are great, kind of broad, but specifically, would you consider this?
I think that'd be
Will there be a
fabulous. Yeah.
process to submit that to the committee? Okay.
Yep. Yep, we'll work that out. And we're gonna work out, we'll have to work out meeting times and stuff like that too. Once we get a committee, we first looked at doing the committee. We'll get all that worked out and have a process. The meetings will be, I don't know if they'll be broadcast live, but there'll be recordings will go up just like our other committees and stuff like that.
The only thing I wanted to make sure I clarify, and Sarah, I think it was a great suggestion, just for full disclosure, community council, public as a whole, getting into what a family is much broader than creating a safe neighborhood. It has
Understood.
implications in your land use way beyond safe neighborhoods. So I just want to make sure that when we come into this, that there is just acknowledgement that this could be something that needs to be a recommendation and postponed till the end of the processes we're working on with our planner and the comp plan, because I don't think you can come out that quickly and say, this is exactly what you should do. There's some other layers to this she's been working on. We've actually had multiple meetings and emails communicating back and forth on just how, and this long before this happened. This is going back to November when these conversations were going on of how we figure out the definition of what a occupant is, what the definition of family is. We actually had an appeal here in front of the appeals board regarding the definition. So there's a lot of pieces going into it and had nothing to do with any activity that was making an unsafe neighborhood. It just was, the definition was in question.
Fully understood. I just think it's difficult to have the conversation. That ordinance also plays into how things are enforced in neighborhoods. And again, I want to say my request is with an eye of making sure our definition is broad enough of family. I know, some years have passed since this one, and other communities are using terms like domestic unit with different kinds of definitions than we have. And I just would want to be sure we're making sure ours is as broad and inclusive as it could be. I had two small other questions.
Ask you a qualifying question on that. So I guess I was thinking that you were just saying to make sure we include the definition for the work being done. I didn't understand that you're saying that this committee might potentially change the definition?
They can't do anything, Leo, except
Yeah.
flag things for us that might need to be looked at. So all I'm asking is for them to flag for us if something in the occupancy definitions is something they think needs to be
So
looked
just
at.
basically include the definitions and what comes from that,
And whether
comes.
they think there's something that might need to be changed in them, just like all other ordinances.
Okay.
I did have two other tiny things that I think are kind of in the levers already, but I just wanted to sort of bring up and ask Clint if he felt like they were fully there. I guess I'm curious if this committee might also, bring back some sense for us of whether there is any desire in Orono to, or not, to reduce non-conforming properties. It's sort of referred to in a couple of levers, and also whether there is some sort of desired balance of renter and owner occupied properties in residential neighborhoods in Orono. And if there even is one, is it the same across town? Does it vary by area? And how does that play into our comp plan? Are the kind of zoning questions that Clint brought up in another lever. But I guess I just want to say, apart from the specific levers, some sense from this committee about, is there a desire or any sort of consensus or around these issues or not would be helpful for me to hear from the committee.
I think the doors are there just to add that. I think there, and again, but I like your clarification of that. And I think that's something that when we get the committee and we can make sure, there would be the last two long terms that I think that most present themselves that way, to say, get looking into how we define medium density residential, look at how we do non-conforming lots for a nuisance. Could we look into purchasing them? And again, I think that could open up or any other alternative along those lines. But if you wanted to add one, I guess, is that what's the piece do you think that's most missing?
I think you have the gist of it. I guess I'm just curious, even if there's no recommendations to take those maybe more extreme steps, at this point, just is there a sense about whether we feel like the non-conforming properties are working or whether we would like to reduce them? Maybe everyone feels like they're working fine with a new set of recommendations, or maybe even as is. But I just want to broaden those a little so that, clearly saying to the committee, whatever the sense from that committee is about non-conforming properties and any kind of balance of renter or owner occupied properties across Orono, I'd love to hear it.
Okay. Any other discussion?
I'm wondering, about the timeline. If we're looking to make some effective change now and before the school year, do we want to look at some of these midterm levers as moving these up so that some of them can be in place in time for school to start?
I think that would be, as I think about the committee's work, I think try and get some meaningful things in place for the start. I mean, we're going to spend a lot of resources welcoming people back to Orono with the Orono Festival Day. And I think that this could be fabulous to have some stuff on the books, that we could have some progress from this work in place that we can share out to people as we welcome people back for the start of the school year. But
And do we want to have Chief Merrill adjust the PD budget to include that recommended staffer?
yeah. Well, I think we'll have to discuss it. Maybe we'll discuss it a little more in our next budget workshop, but I think that that's kind of I don't know that we're going to be there at that point, but I just learned that our unassigned fund balance is pretty high, but like,
You'll chip away at that, I know. No, to Councilor Hardison's point, I mean, I guess my thought is that this committee is being formed for the purpose of determining potential, solutions or paths forward. So I wouldn't want to jump ahead of the committee's work.
I would agree with that. And I'd also say what's Councilor Marks raised, I think, one of first comments, just saying that we can pretty simplify what we're going to make as the charge and just say, develop recommendations in line with the goals that we've established for the committee. I think that's a pretty common sense way from my perspective to go about this.
okay. Is there any comment from the public before we move to finalize this?
I'm working on it. I think I jotted notes.
Okay. Council Marks has the floor yet again.
Just writing fast. So I guess I would suggest that the charge to the committee say, number 1, to work toward the 5 goals set and to list those 5 goals. Number 2, to examine our existing noise, public nuisance, and occupancy ordinances and bring any recommendations for changes in those ordinances back to council. And number 3, to consider all potential levers provided by our town manager in whatever the title is of that document. And again, to bring any recommendations of which levers to utilize and on what time frame back to council.
Is that a motion? Sure.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of the,
In favor.
now this is a amendment. Damn it. So we have a blank motion on Clint, right?
We're
We
doing
have
an
a,
amendment.
excuse me for,
Beginnings of a motion, so you go with the amend and then.
we're going to amend, then we'll pass. We're going to vote twice. All right. Rob, you can just go
In favor.
in favor twice and it'll be, no. Okay. Council Larway, in favor?
In favor.
Yep. Council Hardison?
In favor.
Council Marks?
In favor.
Council Demerits in favor? Council Kenny?
In favor.
Council Baker?
In
Favor.
Council Powers?
In favor.
Okay. And now we have the underlying order, which is order
25105.
25105. Any discussion? Council Larway?
In favor.
Council Hardison?
In favor.
Council Marks?
In favor.
Council Demerits in favor? Council Kenny?
In favor.
Council Baker? Favor. Council Powers?
In favor.
Another unanimous vote for the Orono Town Council. We're on a roll. I don't know what our longest streak is of unanimous, but we're closing in on it. We're doing all right. Now, we had a bunch of bad, well, we're not done yet. We got the budget to do still. All right. Thank you very much for that good work and coming together around it. Order 25106, we have a motion to put that on the table. It's an order amending the town manager's department work
Motion.
plan for 2025.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Clint, you want to walk us through this briefly?
Very briefly. Sure. Again, you guys asked for some amendments. I think great progress has been made even in the first 5-6 months of that work plan and the processes we put forward. I think in the understanding that it was never an expectation that 100% completion was the only way to measure successful work plan progress. Learning what shouldn't be done is just as important as what should be done. So as I looked at that, I went through the whole thing. I think section 2, economic development, could be marked as complete. And again, the reason I say that is we've made great progress on residential. We've done some great progress on commercial. We've had even a couple failures of things that we've worked with some private developers. But if you look at small ones, again, Starbucks coming in, getting better understanding of our water sewer options, meeting with companies like Sargent to talk about what the costs are for expanding water and sewer, whether for residential, commercial. You could easily say great progress has been made on that. So I would say if we can understand that we will not stop working on it, but that's pretty much complete as we're sitting here today, and with work we're doing with other partner agencies. I think the attainable housing is really coming along as well as we move into the end of the year. I've got another 6 months. I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, but with that understanding, the next one, information systems, we had a goal in there that we were going to transition from Google to Microsoft. This won't be done in a year. I'm not saying remove it. It's just to say this will be done by November. No way. So you might as well say, pull that back. It's going to come back next year, but we're going to keep working on it. And then with finance, they were looking at software options. They're not cost effective at this point. We're going to keep looking at them, but I don't think there's any need for us to progress to any council resolutions to make changes on software. We're just not there yet. So I thought overall those adjustments took care of what you had talked about. I probably did glance a little bit too. I think 98 Penobscot could still be brought forward. I think we got to have some conversations there. This isn't like we're going to do it and solve it and get it done by November. I just kind of need that direction of where we headed as a town. What is the goal of the council and community? And I think we could still achieve that one on
And
that.
that's the old Public Works building.
That's the old Public Works building. Yep. So that was simple and as painless. I thought I could make it for you. I did dabble with some of the other ones that would be a little bit more council heavy, but I'm like, I'll let it go this year.
Yeah, it's very sweet of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments from the public on this item? Any comments or questions from council? Okay, we'll move to a vote. Councilor Larway,
In favor.
Councilor Hardison,
In favor.
Councilor Marks,
In favor?
Councilor Demers in favor, Councilor Kenny,
In favor.
Councilor Baker. Favor. Councilor Powers.
In favor.
Excellent. That's unanimous. Thank you, Clint, and appreciate that work. That ends our action items for this evening. We have no council committee reports due to the workshop, town manager report, update on cardboard recycling pilot.
There wasn't much to report on the cardboard recycling. Where'd I go? Right there. So the pilot project, and I can get more official numbers, but again, for the update to the council, we do not have the exact numbers on the numbers of people and its usage, but it is easy to tell that the residents that needed to get rid of large cardboard that's not fitting in the carts has been used. Mike, what was it? Currently Jim said we unload the trailer once a month at the Old Town recycling facility. So that's the usage you're getting. It's getting once a month. It's filling that container. So as far as the number of people contributing, we don't have that. It's not monitored like that, but it is being emptied once a month. You tell me if that's successful, but I mean, it is being utilized and is a good project. Okay, and
Yep.
then the other one,
Is that, did you just get asked for direction to keep doing it, or how is that?
you guys asked me to bring a report back if it's being used, so we're doing one container a month.
Hmm.
If you like it, we'll keep going it and we'll report more later. I mean, I don't
Okay.
think I need a motion or vote.
All right, let's keep doing it.
And Isabel. Let's just see. And so then on the comp plan, I just kind of wanted to report out for the council on the status. So I did hear from Isabel. They're currently still on schedule. They're for completion in November of 2025. They're meeting on the first Wednesday of each month. The meeting in June will be June 3rd, a Tuesday, just because of Orono High School's baccalaureate night. The comp plan has been working on future land use section. Future land use has been providing the legal basis for all our future amendments. Amendments to the zoning and land use regulations must be consistent. So they've been working an awful lot on that language. They want to get feedback in July on the recommendations of this chapter, future land use. Then when working through the rest of the summer and early into the fall, with priority goals of the plan, the consultant will work with staff and nonprofit partners to recommend action strategies. They did accept a vision statement that was approved by the committee on April 2nd, and they're still continuing to get the public to attend. The only piece with that is that we're talking with her and I think it's be important that as they roll into to work out the plan, as they roll into bringing it to the council for public hearings and community input in the official capacity. But that's a step we're working towards.
Okay.
Question about that.
Yeah, Council Marks.
Just a question to follow up with the Good Neighbor Committee that was just formed, which has it originally in our vote last week said something about reporting back to council by July 15th. Am I correct on that?
That's right.
Does that fit reasonably well with the comp plan and when they're going to need to hear that information?
As I look at this and, her plan that as she's working through the process to work through for the rest of the summer, they're going to do the last feedback in July. So I think that would be just feedback you would provide to them. As long as that timeline's met, I think it would all come in perfectly.
And it would just be one other part of public feedback. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, any other questions for the town manager's report? Excellent, we'll move on. We don't have any public petitions. I have one future agenda item and council request for supporting items. Does anybody have any before I do my?
I do.
Yep, Council Hardison?
Not to put the cart before the horse, but we are talking budget and we are talking solutions. I would like to know what the cost would be if you did add a Thursday, Friday, Saturday nighttime police officer for patrol, that just so that we have that information to balance out
Okay,
what we're doing.
we'll workshop it too on June 2nd. Thank you. I guess this used to read items of concern. I don't know, I guess we changed it, but several community members have been sounding the alarm about the change at the Old Town Orono YMCA involving the gymnastics program, which is utilized by a lot of particularly young girls participating in the program, and just how the change was apparently not communicated very well. And I know that it's not, the word Orono is in the title, but it's in Old Town. And I know it's not something we have direct role in, but I wanted to raise the issue, see what other people had been hearing, and just, it concerns me because, people in our community will lose access to something that they value. And I guess that's it for now. I haven't figured out an angle, and Leo, I'm trying. I haven't figured out an angle for the town on it yet, so, or at least thought of it, but it is people like it, and yeah.
I just would comment that I've gone online, I've signed the petition, I've made a donation. I think I know a lot of friends who had kids go through it's an amazing program. I do not like Orono Town Council trying to get into the business of the Orono Old Town Y.
Yeah.
I don't envision them. Well, I think it'd be, again, I like to stay in our lane. So I encourage everyone to go online and sign the petition. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how they're running it. I don't know how they make decisions. And I'm from sitting here, I don't think I'm a little uncomfortable with us taking a position without knowing anything that went into the decision.
I think that's a good point, and that's good advice for people, including me, in terms of how we can be responsive to people, our friends and neighbors who have concerns.
Staff or I hear anything, we'll share the information that we learn to the council. We get any other input or insights, but
Okay.
yeah, I'll let you know.
All right.
While we're on the why, I would also throw out there, my understanding is that Old Town kids can go to the Y for free. I don't know if it's a thing that the city does for them or not. I've heard that rumor, and that's an interest. It's not as convenient for us, for sure, being here, but if anyone knows if that rumor's not true, please.
Mitch, can you come up to the mic, or I don't know if Cody, we picking them up? You get a mic level? Anybody get a decibel meter, or are they all out in the neighborhoods?
So I can just tell you that in the past, the Old Town City Council, they have approved that a membership for everybody that was under a certain age. I think they're revisiting that this year. But they're in their budget process, but I think they were looking at that. So at one point they were doing that. I think they've done it for like a couple years. It hasn't been a very long process, but it looks like they may be revisiting that for this year coming up. So
thank you for that.
In addition to his many duties, Mitch is our liaison to the Old Town City Council. Thank you, Mitch. Okay. All right, any other items of concern or interest? Matt, how you doing? You okay?
I had just one.
Super duper.
Sorry, Matt, did you have something?
I'm doing super duper. Thank you, guys.
Duper is what we want. We want to.
Right, just real quick, and nothing, no request for information here, but I was contacted by somebody who does a lot with the Caring Community Cupboard, the food pantry in Old Town, that due to budget cuts from the federal level, they serve actually a lot of Orono residents, and they're having to consider sort of the real geographic scope of who they can serve given certain budget cuts. I asked for more numbers about all of that I plan to bring back to council when they have a clearer ask for how or if we might be interested in supporting the efforts of the food pantry. So just wanted to put that on people's radar. I'll share what I have when I get more from those people.
And it might be important to note that we also have our own food pantry here in Orono right now. And maybe Megan could speak in more detail, but my understanding is it's open when the Orono thrift store is open. Okay, so I can say that I've been at the thrift store and I think that the food pantry is getting some pretty significant utilization from numbers of people coming in and out of the doors. So thank you.
Yeah, Right. I know they're probably doing a lot of outreach in a number of directions. Great.
Okay, so the Old Town group has reached out to the Orono group. Is that what, just to reiterate, so on mic here so people can hear it? Yeah. Yep. I think the mics pick up everybody. Don't the, yep, okay.
Pick up people in the back?
Yeah.
Great.
No,
Oh, Matt said no.
Okay, Matt says no.
not,
you know,
not
def-
for us online, but that's okay. I got the gist.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Next up is an executive session pursuant to one. We are going to come back in after this first executive session item to take on an order. But before I ask for a motion on it, just for people's background, at our meeting last week, in the agenda, in the minutes, we have the approved language creating the special committee, the Good Neighbor. So I don't think we called it the Good Neighbor Committee, the special committee, last week, and will consist of up to 12 community members. So we're going to go in executive session. We've had outreach from a number of people, more than 12. So the council will review that in executive session and come back in, hopefully with a motion to name those folks to the Orono Good Neighbor Committee. So could I get a motion?
Moved.
Second. Moved and seconded pursuant to 1 MRS Section 4056A Special Committee Appointment Review. Council Laraway?
What?
Oh, we got a vote. We have.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, I spaced out for a second. In favor.
Yeah, sorry.
In favor.
Council Marks?
In favor.
Council Demerits in favor. Councilor Kenny?
In favor.
Councilor Baker? And Councilor Powers?
In favor.
Okay, we'll move into the conference room, right, Clint?
This one, I'll into the Zoom conference in there.
Thank you.
Matt's gonna switch.
We'll take
Yep,
a
I'll switch. See you later.
natural. Just a moment.
No, it doesn't. Clint, evaluation.
That was good at that. That was gonna be good. Gonna do it tonight. We're almost done. Yeah, just go back to him. Okay, we've declared ourselves back from executive session. Thank you, Orono, for your patience and for sticking with us. We're glad you're here. So we have taken order. I'm gonna move. Oh, can I get a motion to put order 25-107 on the table? Order appointing the following members to the Orono Good Neighbor Committee. We've got a motion.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Coming out of executive committee, I will read into the record the names of the people who will be serving. The Good Neighbor Special Committee would be co-chaired by Dan Demerit and Rob Larway. And Councilor Leo Kenny will serve on the committee as well. It will include, if approved by the council, Brian McGill, Diane Breen, Chad Eddy, Dennis Cross, Matt, is it Atchison, Lori Sedelko, Cynthia Martinez Eager, Graceland, is it Jabel? Matt, is that how do you pronounce Graceland's last name?
I don't know. That's close enough.
Gebel. Yep.
Gable.
Graceland. And Jody Clayton. That's 12 members, and we were authorized to appoint up to 12 members, and we were oversubscribed in terms of interest, but that's what we came back with. Is there, do I need to get a second for that? Like it's a motion, like it's an amendment, or we just move ahead? Okay. All right, we'll do a roll call vote, assuming no discussion. Any discussion? Okay. Councilor Larway?
In favor.
Councilor Hardison?
In favor.
Councilor Marks?
Going to recuse myself. I have a family member being nominated.
Okay. Councilor Demerit's in favor. Councilor Kenny?
In favor.
Councilor Baker?
Favor.
Councilor Powers?
In favor.
Excellent. That's unanimous. And now we'd ask congratulations, Mr. McGill, and we welcome your service. Orono thanks you. Then pursuant to, I need a motion for order pursuant to motion to move into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 4056A personal matter, finalizing the town manager's annual evaluation. Could I have a motion?
Second.
With a second and roll call, Councilor Larway?
So, in favor.
In favor. We do two things, right? In favor, Councilor Hardison?
In favor.
Councilor Marks?
In favor?
Councilor Demerit's in favor. Councilor Kenny?
In favor.
Councilor Baker?
Favor.
Councilor Powers?
In favor.
And that concludes our official work for this evening. So we won't be coming back into session